Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Satsuki kidnaps Naruto. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. 10 years pka. Hokage Tower, Konoha. It's been 2.5 years since that night, and he had yet to have decent night's sleep more than twice a week. Apparently he was caught in some super Sharingan genjutsu. 3 days of torture and pain experienced in 1 second, witnessing Gigi and the people at the Ichiraku stand be killed in front of him with nothing he could do, plus the shadowy figures that told him they didn't love him, or want him because he was a little demon. It took Sarutobi, Hiruzen the third Hokage, 2 months to convince Naruto that they were alive. After about a year, Naruto started getting better and was able to sleep mostly through the night. Still every once in a while, he'd wake up screaming covered in sweat. The Hokage also noticed that Naruto was quiet now, keeping to himself, and unless you're one of just a few people. If you're not one of those, all you see is a blank face. Over the last 2 years the Hokage had Anko help little Naruto through the mental trauma, also helping by doing a little training here and there. Eventually Anko's friends, Kurenai, Iruka, and Guy, started helping. The Hokage remembered the time a year ago he was overjoyed. He was spying on little Naruto, Anko, and Kurenai's training session. The psychotic snake mistress Anko, one of the most feared special Jonin, started crying. She turned away from everyone, claimed she had something to do. She just remembered and bolted. Why, you may ask? Flashback. 9.5 years pka. Training ground 32. Little Naruto had just worked himself to exhaustion. Both Kurenai and Anko were proud of him. He was, in their minds, at least low genin. They knew he had issues with people touching him, and the mental trauma left him really wary of trusting and of looking people in the eyes. They made the best of it. So after their training for the day, Anko walked over to where Naruto was laying down, handing him a bottle of water. Reaching up he took the bottle and said, "Thanks Anko Ni-chan." Anko was stunned. She knew Naruto only referred to people either by last name or a nickname if you're lucky. The only time he ever refers to people like family is to certain people, the ramen shop girl, or the Hokage. She noticed he was looking at Kurenai, so Anko turned to her and saw that Kurenai was smiling. He started asking, "Yuhi-san, why are you smiling?" It was then that Anko noticed something wet on her face. She reached up and touched her cheek and saw she was crying. She was so happy she was crying. Kurenai saw her friend crying because she was happy, and that's when Anko started getting embarrassed. She turned around and started heading off. She paused and stated, "I just remembered something. I have an appointment with the Hokage about a mission." She started walking slowly, trying not to look like she was in a hurry, failing at it. That's when little Naruto smiled and said, "Okay then, have fun with Gigi, Ni-chan." Anko heard that and her heart caught in her throat. She squeaked out quietly, "I will." And then she dashed like a bat out of hell. At this point little Naruto was confused and turned to Kurenai, who at this point was having trouble standing straight from laughing so hard. "Yuhi-san, why are you laughing? And why was Nei-chan shaking?" Naruto asked. In between breaths Kurenai responded, "Because Naruto-kun, she was happy." Naruto frowned. "Why were you laughing at her if she was happy?" Kurenai laughing died down to the occasional giggle and replied, "I'm laughing because she needed it. It's complicated. I may explain it when you're older." Naruto just nodded and continued drinking his water. The Hokage smiled about the whole thing, especially when Anko came in flushed and demanded a mission that will take at least a week. The Hokage prepared himself and was facing away from the door. He smiled to himself again, then said with an even voice, "Why do you need a mission, Anko? I thought you were taking a week between missions to help little Naruto-kun." Anko mumbled something. The Hokage turned and asked, "What was that, Anko Nei-chan?" His voice getting slightly higher at the end. Anko head shot straight up and glared at him. Her face was flushed with both anger and embarrassment. She started shouting, "You were peeping on us, you dirty old man." She stormed out of his office. His face faltered. He turned and looked at his Anbu in the room. He noticed that all of them were female. And Anko made it sound much worse than it was. The Hokage nervously giggled and asked, "Please don't hurt me." The Anbu with the Tora mask said sweetly, "Don't worry Hokage-sama. We won't hurt you for peeping on Anko. But your wife may wish to know that you're spying on young women." The Hokage paled at that. Anko smirked at the feint, "No, coming from the Hokage's tower." Now Anko just had to hide from everyone until she stopped being so damned happy. It proved to be harder than she originally thought. Poor Anko had never had to deal with so much crap. Kurenai would pick the most inconvenient times to randomly whisper, "Ni-chan," causing her to become flustered, and whenever she saw little Naruto she noticed she was becoming more and more protective of him. Her friends would never let her live it down. They all made it sound as if she had a crush on the little guy. Which the more she denied it the more they messed with her about it. End flashback. Now the Hokage had other things to deal with. He finally was able to keep little Naruto in the academy, and with the law that he tricked the civilian council into passing allowed him to ensure Naruto's continuing education 2 years ago. The Hokage laughed to himself and remembered that whole meeting. Flashback. 8 years pKa. Council Chambers, Hokage Tower. Sarutobi grimaced at the yelling and shouting going on. The civilian council found out about Naruto's enrollment at the ninja academy. They were in an uproar over the idea that the demon being trained to be a ninja. The council said it wasn't the Hokage's decision to make, they would have to consult the law books. He in turn replied, "Since you're giving me no choice, I propose that any and all applicants to the ninja academy first need consent of their legal guardian, and need to submit their application to a person upon the council." Sarutobi said wearily and looked at Tsubaki Haruno. She was the head of the minor clans and was one of the leading people against little Naruto. Then the Hokage continued, "Haruno-san, is this to your liking?" Tsubaki was beaming. The Hokage addressed her personally and about a very important proposal. She did the only thing her happy mind could think of. "Hi, Hokage-sama, I second the proposal, all in favor?" Sarutobi was laughing on the inside. They were playing right into his hand. He knew that upstart Haruno would agree to practically anything if he asked for her support, making her look more important by singling her out. A round of eyes. The only one who didn't vote for the proposal was Danzo. The Hokage expected as much. "So that's the new law, correct? Let it be recorded in the Konoha Book of Laws. Is there any who wish to have an objection recorded down with the law?" Sarutobi looked around then continued, "Is there any other business for the council today?" "Yes, Haruno-san, what is it?" "Hokage-sama, no disrespect, but what are you going to do with IT now?" Tsubaki asked. The Hokage smiled then replied, "Why, Haruno-san, he'll be enrolled into the academy. He meets all requirements that is in the law we just passed. One, since he's an orphan, he is a ward of the village and therefore I'm his legal guardian as a responsibility of the position of Hokage, and 2, I'm on the council, am I not? So I will allow him to attend the academy, unless I'm wrong?" And with the way the voting took place, it's having been recorded that the law was passed with 11 votes and 1 abstaining vote, and the only way to remove the law is to have a unanimous vote and approval of the Hokage. Sarutobi had a hard time towards the end keeping the smugness out of his voice. Tsubaki on the other hand was furious and gasping like a fish. She was used and she didn't even catch on till it was too late, and more to the point she inadvertently helped that little demon. After that the council was dismissed before there was an uproar. End flashback. The Hokage went back to the bane of his existence, but on the bright side the paperwork at the forefront of that stack was his hobby. The investigation reports trying to find out exactly what happened the night of the tragic end of the 2 largest clans. The survivors either didn't see anything or their, Naruto's, testimony was thrown out by the council. The Hyuga clan was reduced to 6 people. Mai, a 65-year-old main branch member, mother to Heishi, who was in a coma since that day, Hiro, a 18-year-old Chunin, a branch member, and guard for the Hyuga, Hinata, the heiress, Hanabi, Hinata's younger sister, Neji, the branch family heir, and the Uchiha clan was reduced to 2, but after 3 months Itachi the older of the 2 Uchiha left and hasn't been seen since. Naruto often commented to Sarutobi that he was amazed that people started doing all kinds of things for the last of the fallen clans. Basically treating them as royalty to keep them happy, that those clans could do no wrong. Both of the clans were cold and it was as if they expected this type of treatment. Neji was one of the worst of them. He expected that everyone to bow to him, Naruto included. It pissed Neji off to no end, when Naruto not only dismissed him, but also never acknowledged him for anything he did. Neji and others in the class seemed to lash out at Naruto, often trying to get him to fight. Unknown to the Hokage and Naruto, Mizuki secretly with other teachers encouraged this when Iruka isn't looking. Most of the classes kept Naruto out of the unimportant classes, saying he didn't need that training. Little did those teachers know, most of what was missed was being covered by Anko, Kurenai, and/or Guy outside of class in private training. Well, at least for the first couple of years. Elsewhere, Root headquarters. Danzo wasn't happy, since that night Sarutobi watched him very closely. His plan failed and it was because of that damn demon brat. If that wasn't bad enough, the Shinobi Council also has him under scrutiny. Danzo was not happy. Not only did his plan fail but he lost a good portion of his Root agents. Most of Danzo's plans were delayed several years if not decades, and now that he was watched constantly he couldn't retaliate against Naruto or the survivors. So instead he decided to up the hatred of the young boy. Sarutobi had a hard time since that year protecting young Naruto. It seemed as if every time the Hokage turned around, Naruto was in the hospital or barely escaped going to the hospital. The civilian council was going insane. They would bring up the idea of executing or exiling the boy at every meeting, whether or not the meeting had anything to do with Naruto. At every turn though Sarutobi denied the proposal, and once it was denied Danzo would propose to train Naruto and that too would also be declined. Academy. Naruto had started the academy with the remains of the fallen clans, along with the other clan heirs. The class was a little overcrowded with the two Hyugas, the last Uchiha, and Naruto. At first the homeroom teacher Iruka and his assistant Mizuki were mean and dismissed Naruto for various things, so he would miss important lessons. After the first year though Iruka mellowed out and started treating him like the Nara, basically left him be, as long as he did well in class. And all Naruto would do was stare out the window, and unless he was directly called on, which rarely ever happened, he wouldn't say a word during class. If he was called on he would answer in as few words as possible, most of the time never looking at the person asking, which gets him kicked out of class, whether or not he was right, which strangely enough he usually was. Naruto noticed that at the start of the third year of school Mizuki started being unusually kind to him, and something about Mizuki rubbed him the wrong way. By this time Naruto's wardrobe had changed. He now wore a mesh undershirt with bandages under it covering his stomach. His pants were a dark orange Anbu-styled pants. He also wore armored guards on his shins and left forearm with an armored glove, and combat sandals. His right arm had bandages going from mid-bicep to the first knuckle on his fingers and he had a scarf round the lower part of his face covering his whiskers. The other thing that set him apart from everyone else were his goggles and black choker with a familiar swirl on it hidden by his scarf. And his hair it reached to mid-back but it was tied in a loose ponytail. At the start of the third year at the academy Iruka noticed that Naruto, even with most of the parents saying he's bad and to pick on him, started developing a bit of a reputation. It started out small, he's a loner, a monster, a loser, then it became he's holding back. This believed only by a select few, Iruka being one of them. This started with a few comments made by Shikamaru, Hinata, and Satsuki. They noticed that Naruto would pull back or mess up on purpose or so they thought they never could pin down any specific thing. Other didn't believe them and Naruto never said anything, only shrugging when addressed about it. Most of the class simply refused to believe that he was anything other than an average ninja. There was several examples of this. 2 months into the academy. The prince of the academy, Neji Hyuga, walked through the place as if he owned it. He was cold, calculating, and aloof. To top this young shinobi's personality is his never-ending stick shoved up his ass. And today he was going to ruin someone's day because he felt like it. Neji spotted his cousin Hinata, standing there with that Uchiha bitch. He though, Hinata-sama, you should know better than to converse with this Uchiha filth. If you keep this up our clan will surely fall from grace. You're fated to be a loser Kunoichi. But please don't bring our clan down with you. Neji said all of that with a smile. He was flanked by his 3 idiots Kiba, Tobio, and Anaho, one of the few Kunoichi that he tolerates. Well, if she's such a failure then why don't you have her marry a high-ranking family, like me? Kiba offered. I might just do that. Neji said with a smile, while Hinata paled and tried her best not to cry. Screw you Neji-teme, if I'm such filth why do you always trail behind me? Satsuki shot back with a bitter smile, which made Neji livid. You can't talk to me like that Uchiha whore, a girl such as you should learn your place. He angrily shouted. Oh, yeah, and where would that be? Satsuki said while dropping into her family's taijutsu stance in between Neji and Hinata. I would bite my tongue, Hyuga-san. If you know what's good for you, people tend to frown upon nobilities such as yourselves fighting with each other. A voice called out before Neji could respond. The two combatants looked at Naruto, who appeared out of nowhere. What did you say to me, trash? Neji said through gritted teeth. All I was saying is, with your noble upbringing, I thought you would be above fighting amongst your fellow nobles, not to mention your own family. Naruto replied while looking up as if contemplating. Unless you feel threatened by them, I mean that. Naruto was interrupted by a palm strike to the chest by Neji, slamming Naruto into the wall. Naruto started coughing up a little blood. That's when a teacher came out of a classroom to see what the racket was. What is going on here? Hyuga-sama. Uchiha-sama, was this thing bothering you? You report to the headmaster's office. The teacher practically screamed the last part at Naruto. Neji smiled. Hinata and Satsuki started to walk over to try and help, but Naruto held up his hand to stop her. Don't worry, Hyuga-hime. Uchiha-hime. I'm sorry to have disturbed your day, Naruto said while walking away using the wall for support. Both of the academy princesses had one thought on their mind. Why did Naruto, the class's most anti-social person, get involved? Then they both looked at each other with the same perplexed look, both wondering why he seemed familiar. A month later. From that point on, as often as he could, Neji would find Naruto and use him as a training dummy. Kiba, Tobio, and Anaho would join in, Kiba mostly so he wasn't looked down upon by Neji and possible get on his good side to get Hinata. Naruto wouldn't fight back unless it was in taijutsu class, then he would put up the barest defense. Shikamaru often would just stare at Naruto like he was a puzzle that he couldn't solve. The rest of Shikamaru's crew, Choji, Tenten, Shino, and Lee, mostly just wondered why Naruto was so quiet, and why he seemed to tolerate being picked on. Their parents often told them to stay away from Naruto for their family's image. All except Tenten's father. He told her that if she wanted Naruto as a friend, that was up to her. She'd often try to get him to eat lunch with her friends, but he would give that weird eye smile of his and say, "Thank you for the offer, Hisashi-san. But I wouldn't want to intrude nor offend anyone." Then he'd turn and leave. On occasion she'd bring this up with the rest of the crew. They said they wouldn't mind, but maybe it was better this way. The only one that had a real opinion on the matter was Shikamaru, who'd always frown at the smile remark. "Hey Shikamaru, why do you always frown or huff when I tell you?" He smiled and waked away, Tenten once asked, to which Shikamaru responded with, "Troublesome, because I hate the way he smiles." Then Choji jumped into the conversation. "I thought you, munch, munch. You said you didn't mind that Naruto kid. Why, munch, munch. Do you hate him now?" Shikamaru looked over at his friend and replied, "This is all too troublesome. I said I hate that smile, not Naruto, and I hate it because it seems so fake, that and it's kind of creepy looking. I mean, who smiles with their eyes?" Across town a man sneezes, looks around, then shrugs. A week later. Ino and Sakura both were trying to get into class at the same time. The reason for this is because they both wished to sit next to the academy prince Neji. Today though was different. There was someone blocking their way into class, and they both heard, "Fight," continuously being chanted. Now both of their interests were piqued. They shoved the girl out of the way so they could see. There was the object of their affection in another fight with Naruto. Then they both realized something horrible. The girl they shoved was the wallflower Yakumo, and they sent her right between the two fighters. Neji was closing the distance fast, and it was probably too late for him to stop his strike. Yakumo was stunned. She knew she couldn't take a hit from the Neji and walk away. "Am I going to die?" she thought, and closed her eyes tightly, wishing she could have at least gone out with her friends and family one last time. The last image she saw was Neji's palm coming for her chest. She heard the impact but felt nothing. She opened one eye and saw the back of Naruto, then heard his voice. "You know, cough. You shouldn't grope girls in public, Hyuga-san. That's no way, cough. A Hyuga should act." By the last of it Naruto was grinning, with some blood on his lips from the coughs. Not that Yakumo could see, but both Ino and Sakura were slack-jawed. They could have sworn he was like a meter away, but then he was in front of her, like he was standing there the entire time. Then they both rushed over to check if Yakumo was alright. Neji grinned. He thought, that worthless woman actually did something useful. If she wasn't pushed out here, then that baka wouldn't have tripped. Shikamaru scowled and mumbled something. Satsuki and Hinata were just staring. Someone like Naruto couldn't have done that on purpose, right? Then glanced at each other, both weren't really convinced. Kiba couldn't believe it. Naruto was so unlucky. If he didn't misstep and fall like that, he would have been fine. Tobio was mostly grinning like a madman until Naruto started speaking, then he was just pissed that the demon lived. Anaho and the rest of the crew all thought that it was just too weird of a misstep. Did he do that on purpose? No, he wouldn't do that. Nobody in this class is his friend. Why would he take a hit like that? Especially for a wallflower like Yakumo. Then rest of the class cheered for Neji when Naruto coughed up some more blood, then collapsed. Back within the now. The rest of Naruto's class was at odds with their opinions. Hyuga Princess Hinata, a quiet girl that takes too much responsibility onto herself. She dressed with a large coat covering her and the shinobi-style pants showed off her calves. Both of these were a little lavender. She looked at Naruto as just a boy, someone that she could sense, held a responsibility larger than her own, though she couldn't fathom what it was, but in her mind, he was an intriguing enigma. Hinata never knew what he was going to do. Some days he would go the entire day without making a sound, and others he simply wouldn't come to school. She would often talk to Satsuki to confide in about the strange boy, but the last Uchiha was rarely ever talkative. They only really hung out with each other because they were the lasts of their respective clans. The twin princesses of Konoha. Then there was last Uchiha, Satsuki, a broody girl that has quite the short temper if you talk to her about anything. The only one she tolerated was Hinata, and though she would never admit it, she always looked at Naruto as sort of a kindred spirit. Both were without a family, both were treated differently, both wore dark clothing, her with dark blue clan hoodie and black shorts, him with his dark orange shinobi pants and black ninja mesh. Satsuki hated fanboys and girls that followed her, Hinata, and Neji. She found herself staring at Naruto often. She concluded that the only reason why is because she was trying to figure him out. Neji Hyuga was someone that seemed to take fate way too seriously, but he was most likely going to be Rookie of the Year if Satsuki didn't take it from him. Neji almost seemed to detest Naruto. He found his very presence a mockery of ninja everywhere. It didn't matter to him that Naruto was in the top 10, it just seemed he hated him. Ino Yamanaka, the Yamanaka heiress, was a loud, bossy little girl that seems to think that her two clan friends Choji and Shikamaru were her personal servants, splitting her time between being a fangirl for Neji and bossing the class around. She seemed to take offense to Naruto only because Neji does. The only other one from the major clans that had an issue with Naruto was Kiba. Kiba Inuzuka was a brash, overconfident, loud mouth. He seems to not like Naruto due to his smell, and because he seemed to just show him up enough to keep him from the 10 rank in class, and that was not acceptable to Kiba. Really, it seemed he was the only one of the Naruto haters that actually had a reason, albeit pitiful, to hate Naruto. The only ones that don't seem to have an issue, or an opinion, with Naruto are Shino, Choji, and Shikamaru. Shino Aburame, he was the only one that sat nearest to Naruto. Shino liked sitting there because Naruto was quiet and sits still. They seem to have some kind of understanding. He doesn't bother Naruto and Naruto doesn't bother or make fun of him. Choji Akamichi was a large kid. He liked food and Iruka thought the only reason that Choji doesn't have an issue with Naruto is because Naruto doesn't make fun of him. Shikamaru Nara, the bane of Iruka's existence. The Nara just sleeps, and scores just enough to pass. That's as in he fills out enough of the test to pass. And he seems to be along the same mindset as Choji, his best friend. If Naruto didn't bother him then he had no issue with Naruto. Last of the clan heirs was Sakura Haruno, a loud girl who was book smart, and a really short temper. She was also the last of the major clans. Well, her clan isn't major but they act like it. Her family has both a seat on the shinobi and the civilian councils. They feel entitled to much more respect than they're getting. Unfortunately, so does Sakura. Since the Haruno clan hasn't contributed nearly as much to previous wars as any other clan, instead claiming that they were needed here to defend the village, they don't get respect of the shinobi council, or the respect of the Hinata, Neji and Satsuki. The only one of the minor clans that didn't have a problem with Naruto was Kurama Yakumo, but then again she didn't have a problem with anyone. She tended to keep to herself as much as possible, mostly because of the new seal that the Toad Sennin applied to her. She was able to be a kunoichi but she could barely do the basic physical requirements. Still, even with that she was happy. There was a few non-clan students that seemed not to have a problem with Naruto, but they were few. Tenten Hisaja and Lee Rock, both come from civilian families and both don't seem to care one way or another. Tenten was quiet the kunoichi, excellent weapon master. She seemed not to help Naruto, but she didn't hinder nor make fun of him. Then there was Lee, was an oddity in of himself, unable to use his chakra all that well. He was becoming quiet the taijutsu fighter. The rest of the class was either from small clans or were civilian born, and were easily persuaded by the civilian council. In other words, they would try to make Naruto's life a living hell. Naruto, as far as the class and teachers were concerned, was an average shinobi at best. Outside of class was another story. Anko would put Naruto at almost mid-genin. Kurenai on the other hand wasn't as biased, would put him at solid low genin. Iruka, when he did help, he concluded that Naruto was at least solid low genin if not mid-genin. Guy's opinion was obscured from the shouts of youthfulness and such. After 2.5 years, Naruto still felt uncomfortable around Guy and didn't want to be alone with him. Anko, Iruka, and Kurenai agreed, mostly because they caught Guy going to go and buy a miniature spandex suit just like his for Naruto. Naruto had two major advantages over his classmates. One, his stamina. He can go longer and harder than any genin in his class weren't even to that point yet. And two, his massive chakra reserves. He had the chakra of a high chunin and he was only 10.5. Anko often thought that the time he was 15 he would be able to outlast the Sannin in both stamina and chakra in a fight. But then again she was biased. Though she told Naruto that he was at best a newly graduated genin. It was during Naruto's 3rd year at the academy that Anko left on a mission, and didn't come back. Naruto backslid since that day. He again became withdrawn, barely talking again. Unfortunately, Kurenai and Guy had to do more missions, thus being unable to train or keep an eye on Naruto. It became a very bad year for Naruto. 11 years pKa. Slum District, Naruto's apartment. The world was tinted red and Naruto was raised into the air, staked upon a lone tree, then the pain and torture again. Never assume your opponent is dead, until there is nothing left of them, echoed in Naruto's ears as he shot upright in a cold sweat. Looking around, he started calming down. He noticed he had one of his beat-up kunai in his hand. He sighed and set it down, thinking back on that night. At least he did some good that night. He saved some people, or at least he thought he did. He looked over at the clock, 6:43 a.m., he sighed again. He didn't need to be at the academy for another hour and a half or so. He laid there for a while, before deciding to get up. The nightmares didn't happen as often anymore, only about once or twice a month now. Eventually, after getting up, he got ready, and hurried out the door. The academy. Naruto was having a crap day, first the nightmare, then Neji harassing him, and finally forgetting to bring lunch. Anko had a meeting with the Hokage about a new mission during lunch. Ichiraku's was clear across town. Naruto sighed, I guess I'll do my transformation jutsu to get some lunch. He started heading over to a secluded alley to perform the jutsu. Satsuki was having a crap day also. She fell out of bed, was a little late to class, and to top it off, she was being unreasonably harsh to Naruto with Neji. But in my defense, he does try and it pisses me off by just sitting there. I know he's holding back, and he doesn't fight me with all his strength. She started heading off to get some tomatoes with sugar, when she saw Naruto slip around a corner. Intrigued, she followed him. She peeked around the corner and saw Naruto perform a series of hand signs she was a little familiar with, and then he whispered something. With that, Naruto was no longer there, only a stunning woman with long golden hair and a light orange kimono, with a black sash. She looked like a true princess. She was stunning. Satsuki pulled her head back around the corner as Naruto started looking around. Then she hid as Naruto came out of the alleyway. He started back to the lunch vendor and politely asked for some ramen. The man that ran the lunch stand was enamored with Naruto and spoke up, Miss, can I get your name? You're very beautiful and I would love to go out with you sometime. Naruto looked kinda stunned. It's Naruko. Yes, it's Naruko, and I'm sorry. Well, you see, Naruko-heim, don't worry. I understand you have someone in your life, of course you would. I mean, look at you, you're incredibly beautiful. But why would you eat such a commoner's meal? And again Naruto looked confused. I like it. And thanks. Naruto picked up and paid for the ramen, and with his ramen he walked off. Satsuki followed him to the schoolyard, forgetting to eat. She walked right up to Naruto and asked, "Naruto, how did you do that? And why did you do that?" "So it was you, Satsuki. I was wondering who was following me." Satsuki looked at him. Well, what?" Naruto replied. "Are you going to answer me?" "No," Naruto plainly spoke back. Now Satsuki was pissed. She walked right up to him and punched him. Naruto doubled over and popped, splashing water all over the place. Now Satsuki was beyond pissed. She was livid. He created a water clone and switched with it without her noticing, and to top it off she was soaked. When she found Naruto again, she was going to kill him. Naruto was done with lunch and just sat down facing out the window, looking over the schoolyard. Then he heard the rest of the class filter in. A couple of minutes passed, then the door was kicked open. Satsuki came barging in, still slightly damp, and spotted Naruto sitting there. As she stomped towards him, the class became quiet. Everyone was looking at her and thinking various things. "This is going to be troublesome, Shikamaru. Crap, she looks pissed. I'm glad I'm not Naruto Baka. She looks like she's going to kill him, Kiba. I'm afraid to eat. The noise may draw her attention, then she'll kill me, Choji. Good, finally someone's going to kick his ass. Sakura. What did that Baka do now? Ino. Oh Naruto-kun. What did you do to make Satsuki-chan mad, Hinata? Fate has decided to put that brazen upstart in his place, Neji. She's going to kill Naruto-san. I wonder what he did. Tenten. I wonder what is going on. Lee. Shino. Good, I hope she kills that demon, Tobio. Hopefully this gets a little bloody, Inaho. Oh no, what happened between Satsuki-san and Naruto-san, Yakumo? Satsuki on the other hand was thinking, look at him, he's not even looking at me. He knows that he pissed me off and he just sits there like nothing's wrong. I'm going to kick his ass, then make him bow before me and apologize. Then he's going to take me to dinner to make up for this after he teaches me that jutsu. With that happy thought she stormed right up to the back row. Poor Kiba looked about ready to piss himself. Satsuki kept going and turned away from Kiba to face Naruto. She stopped right next to him and glared at him. Her stare was smoldering. Naruto kept staring out the window like she wasn't there. Kiba started calming down, especially since he now had a prefect view of the last Uchiha's ass. After 30 seconds of glaring, Satsuki had enough of Naruto ignoring her. Naruto-san, she started with frost in her voice, teach me that jutsu and I won't kill you. I am the last Uchiha, you will teach me and you should be honored. No, what? Satsuki screamed. I said no, Naruto replied calmly. Why not? I am Uchiha. I need power to make my clan powerful again. Naruto scooted his seat back and turned to her. I don't care if you're Hokage, Uchiha, or cute, I don't have to teach you anything, Naruto replied and thought, did I just say she was cute? Satsuki got slightly flushed and thought, did he just call me cute? I'll teach him to mess with me. Satsuki cocked her fist back. Now during this small and quick argument, Kiba couldn't help himself, stupid instincts and hormones. He started reaching out to touch her. The last Uchiha was a hottie. Plus she was rich. If he could get her or Hinata, his clan was set. If only for a second Kiba just wanted to lay his hands upon her. Neji on the other hand was thinking of a way to put that Uchiha bitch in her place, and Kiba just presented it. Neji saw the prefect moment right when Kiba reached out. Neji shoved Kiba. Kiba lurched forward, pushing on Satsuki's butt, causing her to fall forward into Naruto's lap. And by falling into his lap, she fell right into a kiss. Suddenly the class, who were murmuring to themselves, went silent. Troublesome, Shikamaru. Crap, she's gonna kill me, Kiba. This is better than a movie, Choji. Oh, my, Kami, Sakura and Ino. You're so lucky, Satsuki-chan, you got to kiss someone, Hinata. This is better than what I hoped for. Now she'll kill him for sure, Neji. Ooh, this is so blackmail material. Unfortunately we're not going to learn anything else today, Tenten. Naruto-san has that kind of relationship with Satsuki-san. Lee. Shino. I'm gonna kill that bastard, he took her first kiss, Tobio. Great, now the day just became about them, Inaho. Oh my, I wonder what's going to happen now? Yakumo. Naruto suddenly had a multitude of thoughts go through his mind. What just happened? Why is there a weight on my lap? Wasn't I talking to someone? What's pressing against my lips? Why is my heart beating so fast? Open your eyes. With that, Naruto opened his eyes and was looking at Satsuki's closed eyes. What the hell? What is she doing? Are we kissing? Why is she kissing me? Why would anyone kiss me? I thought you did that with people you love. That's it, she's trying to trick me. The class is going to attack. Neji is going to strike. I have to get out of here. During that same time, Satsuki was thinking only a few thoughts. My heart is beating so fast. His lips are so warm. This feels right. Wait, I don't like him, do I? And how did I get here? Then at that moment she was thrust backwards. Naruto practically shoved her to the floor. She landed and looked up in time to see Naruto looking pretty much like he was frightened out of his mind. He seemed as if he was frantically searching around for a threat with kunai in hand, and his chakra was flaring. The class gasped at his tossing the last Uchiha to the floor, and were going to lash out at him but stopped. You could see his chakra, not just Neji or Hinata, but regular people could see his chakra. That's ridiculous. No one below a Jonin should be able to manifest their chakra. He looked at Satsuki on the floor. His face became lightly flushed, while still being confused and scared. He spun, took 2 steps and in one fluid motion, slipped out the window. Everyone rushed to the window. They were on the 3rd floor. He was going to kill himself by jumping out that window. By the time anyone got to the window, they only saw a dark figure dart across the yard. After that in Iruka's class it was dead silent. Everyone was staring wide-eyed at this most improbable thought. There was Naruto. The bottom of the top 10 in the class was in a full lip lock with the last Uchiha. Iruka was flabbergasted. He stood still for 15 seconds while his brain tried to comprehend what just happened. Yay, class is over today. Iruka stumbled over his words a bit. Shikamaru turned to Kiba as they were leaving class. Kiba-san, this is troublesome. But from one clan heir to another, I think you should run, huh? Kiba turned and replied. At that moment they both heard an unearthly call, Kiba-san. Kiba gulped and looked over his shoulder and saw a very pissed off Satsuki. Hey Satsuki-san, I know that looked bad, but I was pushed, so no hard feelings, right? He nervously giggled. You grabbed my ass, she said while looking at the floor. Her head shot up and looked Kiba in the eye. Die dog breath. There were rumors of a ghost in the academy, with the moans and groans that were heard that night. Meanwhile back in the academy, Iruka turned and sent a pigeon to Anko. I don't know how she's going to take this, but someone's got to find the kid. He looked pretty freaked out. 5 minutes later Anko showed up confused. Why am I here, Iruka-kun? Iruka turned and looked at her. Look, I'll try to explain a little, but when I'm done you have to find and ask Naruto. At this point Anko was nervous, so she did what she always does when she's nervous. Anko's hand shot out and snatched Iruka by the throat and had a kunai at his crotch. What happened to Naruto-kun? Where is he? You better answer or you're going to be less of a man, Anko-san. A voice from behind her called out. Her head whipped around to face whoever it was. There stood the Hokage and he smiled and continued. Anko-san. Iruka-san cannot breathe, so he'll have trouble answering your questions. Anko blinked a few times then turned back to Iruka, whose lips were starting to turn blue. She released him and smiled sheepishly. Iruka coughed and quickly regained his breath. Hokage-sama, what brings you here? Not that I'm complaining, and thank you for saving me. The Hokage chuckled. Iruka-san, I figured I would come and save you since you summoned Anko-san, and no one else was here. Not to be rude or anything, what happened to Naruto? Iruka-kun, you better tell me or I am going to kill you. Hokage present or no? Anko said, getting slightly more anxious. Iruka turned and looked at her, just then realizing she assumed something horrible. No, Anko-san, nothing horrible happened to Naruto. I'm sorry for giving you that impression, it's just really hard to believe and I think he doesn't understand what happened. Sarutobi intervened before Anko would kill Iruka for drawing this out any longer. Well, you see, Anko-san, it happened like this. 12 months later. 12 years PKA. Ninja Academy grounds. The class was now going through their final tests to see if they qualified to be genin. The tests seemed to be relatively easy. The whole class looked as if it would pass. Naruto finished at about in the top 10 of the class. His was ranked 10 out of the 33 students. The Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu was his saving grace. For the life of him he could never do a regular Bunshin. He still was depressed that Anko was gone, but rarely let it show. The rest of the class passed as well. Everyone was going off with their families and friends to go and celebrate. Naruto was slightly depressed, both with Anko missing and Kurenai on mission. He didn't have anyone to celebrate with. Well, he could probably find Guy, but he wasn't that desperate for attention. So he lingered around the academy grounds for a while, hopefully catching Iruka, to see if he would go and eat with him. Naruto was lost in thought and never noticed Mizuki coming up to him. Naruto. Mizuki startled Naruto a little and continued, Naruto, as you know, that was just a qualification test. We have to give a secondary true test once you get their teams, to see if you're qualified to be an actual ninja, okay Mizuki-sensei? Why are you telling me this now? Naruto asked. Well, you see, everyone is with their family and friends, they'll find out in a week or so, but since you don't have a family you can complete your secondary test tonight, so you don't have to go through the same crap everyone else has to. Naruto felt the sting from that comment but pressed forward. Okay Mizuki-sensei, what do I have to do? Mizuki smiled and said, well Naruto, all you have to do is. Kurenai arrived on the scene with Iruka. What they saw was devastation. There was now a clearing where there wasn't before. Trees and rocks were obliterated, craters in the ground and small fires burning in random places. In the center of it lay three figures. Mizuki, who looked like someone threw him into a pit of angry bears. He was still breathing but barely. Satsuki Uchiha, who had several very small injuries and looked exhausted, but otherwise was fine. She heard something and got up to defend the body behind her, worried as she spotted the duo. I won't let you take him, she weakly spat. Calm down Satsuki-san. It's me Iruka-sensei, we're not here to hurt anyone. What happened? Iruka calmly walked forward with his hands in front of him. Satsuki looked him up and down, and then fell to the ground. Kurenai shrieked when she got close enough to identify the last figure. It was Naruto. He looked mangled. That is putting it nicely. She rushed over and picked him up, looked Satsuki in the eye. Iruka had her propped up, and said in a cold tone, if you had anything to do with his injuries you'll wish you only looked this bad, am I clear? Satsuki was too tired to be scared of Kurenai, she just weakly nodded. Kurenai turned and looked at Iruka. If Anko was here she would kill me for letting this happen. I'm going to take him to the hospital. If anyone asks, she sped off to the hospital. Guy had just shown up and was about to say something when Iruka almost shouted, you did what? Guy spun around to face them. Iruka was looking wide-eyed at Satsuki. What's going on? What happened? Guy asked. That's something I would like to know, a voice called out from behind him. He turned to face the new voice only to find it belonging to the Hokage. He was surrounded by no less than 20 Anbu. Satsuki looked at him and smiled, albeit a pitiful smile, but it was still a genuine smile. He told me that if I see you to call you Oji-san and to give you this back. She pulled out a small unassuming scroll and tossed it to the Hokage. He caught it and glanced back to her. She just said one word, Genjutsu. The Hokage smiled, Kai. The scroll disappeared only to be replaced with the forbidden scroll. Tora, get a medic. Now Satsuki, please inform us as to what happened. The Hokage spoke warmly. First arrest that thing. Satsuki spoke as she pointed at the unconscious form of Mizuki. The Hokage nodded and called out, Ryu, dragon, take him to Ibiki. With that, Ryu appeared next to Mizuki, grabbed him and disappeared. Now Satsuki, you were saying, the Hokage said. Then Satsuki smiled and started. Well, you see, when I got here, Naruto was already here, but it started when I overheard Mizuki. Flashback. 6 hours ago. Academy grounds. Satsuki was going to challenge Naruto to a spar since he was fun to fight against. It was never the same fight twice, he always does something different. Unlike everyone else, they would rely on one or two different things. She came around the corner to try to catch Naruto before he vanished. She overheard something, she snuck up closer, then saw it was Naruto and Mizuki. They were discussing a secondary genin exam, the true test. She became slightly pissed. She was the last Uchiha. Why wasn't she offered this secondary test before everyone like Naruto was? After Naruto left, Satsuki marched over to Mizuki. Satsuki-san, what can I do for you? Mizuki asked politely. I want a mission like Naruto got. Satsuki practically demanded. Mizuki was taken slightly aback, and then smiled. I've got the prefect mission for you. I need you to run a secondary task. Your mission is to track down Naruto and assist me with Naruto's mission. Your mission doesn't start until later this evening in Training Ground 48, so get some rest. Satsuki had wandered around the training ground for what seemed like an hour. Mizuki baka, Naruto baka, Satsuki angrily thought. Here I am wandering around this damned forest at night trying to find those two idiots. Why didn't Mizuki Baka tell me where the hell we were supposed to meet? Wait Mon? Satsuki's head snapped towards where the sound came from. Satsuki started heading that way quietly. What the hell is going on? Satsuki asked herself. Uki no, oing, Endi I can't let you have the scroll. Naruto's voice became clearer as Satsuki got closer. She approached as quietly as she could. She heard Mizuki retort, I'm a chunin. You're a genin, you really think you can stand up to me? And besides, when that stupid little girl gets here I'm gonna take her and the scroll too. You really think Satsuki Haim would go with you? She's one of the smartest of our year. Naruto shot back. While hiding in the bush, Satsuki was first pissed, then she became shocked. Naruto not only defended her but called her by her first name. She blushed a little to when it filtered thought that he called her Haim also, as if she was something to him. He doesn't call anyone by their first name, he doesn't do a lot of. Her thoughts were interrupted by Mizuki. I'll think of something, demon. Now hand over the scroll and I'll kill you quickly. Let me think about that. How about, piss off Teme? Naruto snarled back. This was not the same person at the academy. Naruto was staring down a chunin like he was a badly behaved child. Fine demon Gaki, I'll just kill you then I'll take the Uchiha bitch to Orochimaru-sama. Mizuki spat out through gritted teeth. Satsuki had enough. No one, I repeat no one calls her a bitch. Mizuki Teme, you're going to have one hell of a problem trying to convince me to go with you, Satsuki said as she dashed out of the woods, stopping close to Naruto. She nodded to Naruto as she dropped into her family fighting stance. Damn, oh well, I'll just have to kidnap you. I wonder if Orochimaru-sama would mind if you came to him broken in. Satsuki shivered at the thought. But what caught her attention was Naruto's response. He was shaking with rage. You will not touch her or anyone else for that matter. Naruto barely was heard. But the glare he gave actually stopped Mizuki in his tracks. Mizuki faltered a little. Why, you little demon, you will die then. There is nothing to stop me. Naruto launched himself at Mizuki and planted both heels into Mizuki's chest, sending the chunin back through the woods. Naruto landed and came back to Satsuki, looking right into her eyes while putting something into her hands. Satsuki-san, I need you to run and give this to Oji-san and tell him to come back here as fast as he can. What about you? Satsuki asked, then embarrassedly followed with, I mean, what about him? How are you going to keep him here? That's why you have to hurry, Naruto said while turned around to face where Mizuki disappeared. Before Satsuki could respond, Mizuki's voice came out of the woods. You and your bitch aren't going anywhere. Kunai and shuriken erupted from the foliage to the left for them. Naruto slid between them and Satsuki. She looked at him trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Then he shouted back to her, run and hide, get away from here. Without turning his head, Satsuki stood almost frozen, not because of fear, no, she recognized that phrasing, she heard it almost 5 years ago. It couldn't be, she was told no one escaped, only her and her brother. Then Mizuki came flying out of the brush, kicking Naruto hard in the ribs, sending him bouncing off a tree, then punching Satsuki in the gut, causing her to almost drop the scroll. Mizuki smiled. What is this, little Uchiha? Are you frightened? Are you acting out of concern for that demon? Do you want to know why he's CA? Mizuki was suddenly thrown to the side from a punch to his side. Satsuki-san, are you alright? Satsuki nodded, then Naruto continued. Good, now get out of here. No, I don't think she'll leave, demon. Why is that? Naruto warily asked. Because if she does I won't tell her where her brother is, Mizuki's voice called out. Satsuki-san, it's a trick, he doesn't know anything. Mizuki again came from nowhere and punched Naruto, sending him against another tree, and then engaged in a taijutsu match with Satsuki. She was mostly on the defensive, until she put the scroll across her back. Then it became somewhat more even of a match. She was still losing. Naruto joined the fray and together Naruto and Satsuki started turning the tide. Putting Mizuki on the defensive, he fired off a minor fire jutsu that hit Naruto square in the chest. Mizuki sent more minor elemental jutsus at them, causing them to back away from him. I'm a chunin, what the hell is this? Why are they giving me so much difficulty? Orochimaru-sama will have the Uchiha, and you demon. You will die. Then jutsu hell broke loose. The small grove went from beautiful to destroyed in a matter of moments. All three combatants were winded. Satsuki could barely stand. She launched 3 of her most powerful Kaiden jutsus. She could barely move, and was moving on while alone at this point looking over at Naruto. She saw he was worst for wear. He had purposely taken as much of the damage as he could, saving her from harm. She was getting pissed with him. The most average student was trying to protect her, the elite of the elite, as if she needed his protection. Quit protecting me, Baka, you're just hurting yourself for no reason. I could have gotten out of the way of that last jutsu, Satsuki huffed out tiredly. I know, Satsuki-san, but you would be missed if you died, Naruto responded without looking at her. Satsuki stared at the back of his head wondering, why did you make it sound if no one would care if you did? Mizuki hauled himself out of the crater that caused through impact. He looked at both genin standing before him with a crazed look in his eyes. He started cackling madly, then stopped suddenly looking both in the eyes and said with a malicious tone, I never thought I'd have to go this far against mere genin, but I guess I'll just kill the demon now and take her with me. What are you? A broken record? We've heard you say that for what, 10 minutes now, and you've yet to accomplish it, Naruto replied between breaths. But I have something you two don't, Mizuki responded coldly. What? An empty sack, Naruto shot back. Mizuki was practically boiling with rage. No, you demon Gaki, this, he ripped his shirt off, revealing a curse seal on his shoulder. The curse seal started spreading across his body, taking on the look of a tiger. Then Mizuki launched himself at Naruto. Oh, she. Naruto never finished that statement. Mizuki slammed into him and threw him through a tree. He bounced off of several trees before both Mizuki and Satsuki lost sight of him. Satsuki felt fear for the second time in her life. This man was going to take her to the fallen Sannin, and there was nothing she could do. She was too tired and was nearly out of chakra. Where did Mizuki get this power? How am I going to get out of this? Satsuki thought to herself. Mizuki turned to her with that same wicked gleam in his eye. Now you little Uchiha bitch. The only reason you're still breathing is because Orochimaru-sama wants you alive. Otherwise I would kill you for the trouble you've caused, Mizuki boasted ominously. Then they both felt a chakra surge, coming from the direction Naruto was thrown. Mizuki took a step back. No, it's not possible. He couldn't have survived that. Then the chakra disappeared. Mizuki visibly relaxed. I knew it, he started chuckling. I knew your little demon pet couldn't survive. I don't need him to kick your ass, Satsuki practically screamed. Mizuki grinned at her. I'm sure Orochimaru-sama wouldn't mind a few bruises. Maybe if you're lucky I'll make you a woman, because who knows what the Hubby-sama, Snake Lord, will do to you. They both went at each other again. Satsuki losing badly, she didn't have any strength left. Mizuki threw her against a tree and pinned her to it by her throat. Mizuki drew close enough that Satsuki felt his breath on her face. Now before you pass out, know this. After you're out I'm going to find that demon and kill it, then have my fun with you once we're out of the village, he told her in a cold tone. Satsuki struggled as started fading to black when she heard, Togeki. Buro Kaken, special skill. Breaker fist. Out of nowhere a fist slammed into the side of Mizuki's face, driving his head into the ground next to the tree, causing a small crater. Satsuki dropped to the ground coughing. Looking up she saw Naruto standing over Mizuki. His entire right arm looked like he decided to play with explosive tags, putting them all over his arm then set them all off at once. He turned and looked at her, he smiled then collapsed. She dragged herself over and pulled him off of Mizuki. Present. And 2 minutes later all of you showed up. Hokage-sama. Satsuki finished telling the story. The Hokage was impressed that 2 fresh academy students defeated a hopped-up cursed Chunin. He could barely believe it, but knowing Naruto, that's how it happened. Alright, let's get you to the hospital so you can rest. Next week you find out what team you'll be put on. The Hokage smiled and nodded to Guy. He rushed over and helped Satsuki up, picked her up and rushed her to the hospital, claiming that if he didn't get her there in the next few minutes he'd do something ridiculous. So little Naruto-kun, you proved yourself yet again. The Hokage looked at the now clear field with a smile. Now all I have to do is figure out what team you'll be on. Whatever the team, I'll expect great things from both you and them. Unfortunately, he'll most likely get screwed by the council, but I'm sure he'll triumph over whatever they do to him. I'm sorry little Naruto, but I need to buy some political capital, and the only way to do that is to let the council make your squad. But if anything happens I'll transfer you to a different squad as fast as I can. and with this thought the Hokage frowned and turned to head back to his most hated foe. Paperwork. Ninja Academy, Konoha. Okay class, settle down. I know you just got back from your break, but you have to be quiet to find out what teams you on, Iruka calmly asked. And he received nothing but continued talking. Everyone shut up and sit down, Iruka said while pulling Demon Head no Jutsu. Everyone became quiet and sat down. Now as I was saying, congratulations on passing the academy. Now these are your team assignments. Team 1. Naruto was wondering what team he would be put on, most likely some team that will try to kill me the first chance they get. Oji-san better know what he's doing. Sweet Kami, this is why I hate politics. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard his name. Iruka continued, Naruto, Tobio Mitsu, and Anaho. To me your Jonin instructor is Ebisu Tokai. Team 7 consists of Lee Rock, Satsuki Uchiha, and Choji Akamichi. Your Jonin instructor is Kakashi Hitaki. Team 8 is Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka and Tenten Hisashi. Your Jonin instructor is Kurenai Yuhi. Team 9 has Neji Hyuga, Shino Aburame and Sakura Haruno. There suddenly was a loud squeal. In you face Ino pig, Sakura squealed out, Haruno sit down and be quiet. Iruka said then continued, and your instructor is Yugo Izuki, and finally Team 10 which has Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka and Yakumo Kurama. Your instructor is Asumaseru Tobi. Now then you'll meet your Jonin instructors after lunch. Dismissed, Iruka finished with a smile. Satsuki-chan, why do you keep looking at him? Ino asked while pointing at Naruto. Sakura flanking her asked, I mean I understand why you won't let yourself like Neji-kun because of the whole Uchiha, Hyuga thing, but still, even that arrow Kiba Baka is better than Naruto Baka. Satsuki looked at her then glanced at Hinata then back at Naruto, while replying, HN. What Satsuki-chan means to say is why. Hinata stated in Satsuki's stead. Ino became confused then asked, why what? Hinata gave a small smile. Why is everyone better than Naruto-san? Do they help you? Do they go out of their way to make sure you're alright? Do they give you confidence in yourself? Hinata asked as she watched Naruto leave for lunch, then continued, doesn't it seem funny that no matter who he goes against in spars he just barely loses, even against Neji-ni-san? Then Sakura screamed out, but he still loses, why are you defending him? Everyone knows he's a bad kid, nothing but a loser. He's a little monster, that's what my mother and everybody else says. Satsuki turned and glared at Sakura then spoke. Then how did he beat a Chunin nuke Nen? Receiving what looks to be no wounds. Satsuki paused and thought, but I saw his condition, it's only been 5 days, I'm still a little sore. Why does he look like nothing happened? She returned to staring at where he was sitting only a few minutes ago. Sakura started up again, Naruto Baka couldn't have taken on a Chunin, he can't even beat me in taijutsu. He's probably making it up, try to make himself look better than Neji-kun. Satsuki turned and glared again, making Sakura wilt under her gaze. I saw him do it, he hasn't said a word, he's acting as if nothing happened, so I'm the only one who's saying that he did it. Are you calling me a liar? Sakura was gasping trying to respond when Ino gave her the, shut it, look. Hinata just shook her head as Ino and Sakura walked away. Ino kept thinking about what Satsuki said. She for the life of her couldn't come up with an argument against what was said. She glanced at her longtime friend/rival and saw the same look of confusion in her eyes. Sakura's mom had made it quite clear that Naruto was a very bad kid and that under no circumstances should she ever be nice to him or talk to him at all. Why is it now that she thought about it, that what Satsuki said made a little sense? Why was Kiba better? He was always one step behind Naruto, and Kiba was a perv, while Naruto was well Naruto. Naruto would last exactly 1 minute 30 seconds in every taijutsu match no matter his opponent was, just enough to have a solid B, while Kiba's results were always varied. The more the two of them thought about it the more they became confused. No matter, neither one of the losers were better than Neji-kun, they kept in mind. Hinata thought it was funny her friend was infatuated with the blonde enigma and refused to see it. She on the other hand knew she wanted to know more about him. He was all she wanted to be. He made his voice heard when he didn't like something. He was far stealthier than anyone she knew, and if he didn't want to talk to you he didn't. It was just like that, no one pressuring him, he was free. She liked how nice he was to everyone, but never understood why he always distanced himself. She did notice that Naruto had his own little fan club. Yakumo likes him, but Hinata thought it was mostly a knight in shining armor type thing, not really liking him. Tenten might be part of it. She kept glancing at Naruto, but she couldn't decide whether or not it was because Tenten liked him or it was she wanted to be his friend. Satsuki was defiantly part of it. That girl liked him because he was a challenge. He never just gave in. She always had to fight him for whatever she wanted. Hinata hated to admit it, but secretly deep down she was part of it. He was refreshing. He treated her like a person, not a princess, but she was pretty sure she didn't like him like that. She just hoped that now they started their ninja career she might see him again, and maybe find out more about him. Time for team meetings. Ebisu couldn't believe his luck. Not only had the council got him away from the Hokage's grandson, but to top it off, they gave him a hero's job. Soon demon, soon I will kill you. My other 2 students and I will bask in the glory of your death, Ebisu thought, then remembered he had to be nice to that thing to gain its trust. He also had Tobio, the nephew of an acquaintance, grandson of a council member, and Anaho, a civilian girl that didn't tolerate failure. And once he removed the demon, he hoped he could get a good replacement. Ebisu made his way to the class. Give me 2 weeks at most and I'll have that thing dead, he happily mused. Naruto for the most part was able to get a decent meal without any problems. Now it was just his teammates that concerned him. Anaho was for the most part not hostile, yet, and Tobio was hostile to the point of being openly threatening. But Tobio would be too much to handle, at least that's what he hoped, but his sensei, he was an unknown, and most likely only took this job to fail him. Naruto signed. This shit was getting old. Oh well, he thought, it looks like our Jonin are here. Well, most of them. People started exiting with their teams. Then a tall man with a bandana and sunglasses looked right at Naruto and called for Team 6 to follow him. Naruto followed his Jonin leader out to the academy practice fields. Ebisu turned and looked at his students. I am your new sensei. My name is Tokai Ebisu. You will address me as Tokai sensei. Now, I have one question for each of you. He paused, looking at each of them. Will you give your life for this village, to protect it from every enemy both outside and in? Then he pointed at Tobio. Hi, Tokai sensei, Tobio quickly responded. Now Ebisu pointed at Anaho. Hi, Tokai sensei, she responded directly. Then looked at Naruto, and you? Naruto glanced at him and quietly said, Hi, sensei. Lying little demon, I should kill you here. No wait, I have to wait, Ebisu thought angrily but schooled his face, then continued. Good, now we're going to do a few teamwork missions tomorrow, so meet me at training ground 16, but by next week we should be able to get a mission outside of the village. The Ebisu smirked and mused to himself, and out there you little demon, the Hokage can't save you, dismissed. Hi, Tokai sensei, came the 3 voices. They went their separate ways. Naruto was on his way home when he remembered he left a blunted kunai in his desk. Waste not, want not, he thought. He ran back to the academy, back to his class. He decided he didn't want any trouble, so he found a dark alleyway and preformed his transformation jutsu. Walking down the street, people just stared at him. Most guys were giving him creepy looks he didn't quite understand, and all the women were looking at him normally, well, normally for him. He arrived at the academy walking past Iruka sensei and seeing Iruka just stare at him slack-jawed. Naruto didn't stop as he walked by Iruka. He was having some trouble stopping himself from laughing at his former sensei. He arrived at his class, opening the door, and was caught off guard. There sat Satsuki, Choji, and Lee, just sitting there 2.5 hours after everyone had left. All of them stared back at Naruto. Lee had never seen such a beauty since Sakura. The hopped down and threw his hand forward, while exclaiming, Hello Kakashi-sensei. With your name I was expecting a guy. I hope you are not offended, but I find you quite captivating. Naruto looked at him, like he grew a second head. Choji got up and walked down to them, and smacked Lee upside the back of his head. Lee stopped being rude, then turned and looked at Naruto with a slight blush and continued. Sensei, are we going to meet here or are we going to move somewhere else? Naruto was gobsmacked. He couldn't make any sound come out of his mouth. Satsuki was trying her damnedest to not laugh. She remembered from about a year ago, this was Naruto, or Naruko, as he inadvertently named himself. Just then someone else walked into the classroom behind them. He was tall, with silver hair that defied gravity. A face mask and his hite-8 covered his left eye. Excuse me miss, But why are you trying to steal my students, looking at her with his eye smile. Then continued. If you wish the company of a shinobi, I'll be more than happy to accompany you anywhere. He dragged out. Anywhere, very creepily, Naruto thought to himself. I am Kakashi Hitaki by the way, and what is the name of this prefect Rose that is in front of me? Naruko, Umeshi Naruko, Satsuki said with a grin. Naruko whipped his head around to look at her. Umeshi Hime, if I could meet you later after my team meeting I would love to take you to dinner, Kakashi continued. I'm afraid not Kakashi-sensei, Umeshi-sensei is going to be training me later in transformation jutsus, Satsuki plainly said. Naruko had now adopted a WTF look. Ah, that is too bad. I am Quiet the ninja, you would be in the safest place in this whole village, Kakashi said. Then Lee asked. Where would that be Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi looked at them all and eyes smiled and said, in my hands. Of course, both Satsuki and Naruko shuddered at this statement. Well, Umeshi Hime, would you care to join us on the roof? It's where my team and I are going to get to know each other. And maybe we too can get to know each other, Kakashi asked. Naruko was about to respond when Satsuki interrupted. Hi, Umeshi-sensei would love to join us. Naruko glared at Satsuki as the others left the class. As they were walking, Naruko leaned over and whispered to Satsuki, Uchiha Hime, what are you doing? And why the hell should I train you in anything? I can make the council make you teach me, but I'd rather have you willingly teach me. I really want to learn your transformation jutsu, since it can fool my Jonin-sensei, Satsuki said with a smirk. Fine, but you realize all it is just a henge, Naruko responded. Before Satsuki could respond they arrived on the roof. Everyone sat down, Satsuki sitting to the right of Naruko and Kakashi sat to the left of Naruko. Now, let's get to know each other, their sensei spoke with a smile. Lee piped up with, what do you mean Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi looked at Lee and replied, you know likes, dislikes, dreams for the future, and stuff like that. Choji looked at him and asked, could you go first sensei? Kakashi sighed and said, fine, my name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have many likes and a few dislikes, and my dreams for the future isn't any of your concern. Now your turn, bushy brows. My name is Rock Lee, I like training, Sakura-chan, and Umeshi-san. He blushed a bit, while Naruko looked a little scared while Satsuki wasn't laughing, close to it though. Lee continued, my dislikes are people who belittle others, people who say that I can't be a ninja because I can't use a lot of chakra, or people that are mean to my friends. My dreams for the future are to become the best ninja I can be. Kakashi looked him over and thought, maybe Guy would be a better pick for him, then pointed at Choji. You next, Akamichi-san. Choji stood up and set his chips down. My name is Akamichi Choji. I like my friend, my family, my food, and training. I dislike people who call me fat or chubby or something like that. Also I hate people that mess with my friends. My dream is to become the best clan head I could be, hopefully marry a kunoichi that can cook the best meals. Kakashi smirked under his mask, typical Akamichi. Now you Uchiha Hime, Satsuki glared at him. Naruko wondered why she never glared at him for saying Uchiha Hime, but everyone else she gave the evilest glare. Fine, my name is Uchiha Satsuki, not Uchiha Hime, or Uchiha-sama or whatever else. My likes are few and I have plenty of dislikes. My dream is to find my brother and to kill those responsible for killing my clan. Satsuki ended her introduction with a very dark tone and a scowl. Kakashi frowned, she could possibly go off half-cocked and get herself into trouble. And now you Umeshi Hime, again this was said with that eye smile. Naruko blinked in surprise. Yeah Umeshi-sensei, tell us about yourself, Satsuki smirked. Naruto glared at her. My name is Umeshi Naruko. I like training with my student Uchiha Hime. Satsuki frowned, as Naruko smirked and continued. I dislike people that can't look past the past, and perverts, and people that don't work for things and just expect things to be given to them. Kakashi frowned again, he didn't like the way this was going. Naruko continued, my dream is to become acknowledged by this village, and become the greatest Hokage ever. Kakashi furrowed his brows, this beauty was confusing him. She had no Hite 8 in basic ninja training. She didn't sense him behind her. She had Quiet the Dream and she was teaching the last Uchiha, possible she was going to use Satsuki. Kakashi decided to inform the Hokage of this woman. Well, now that that's over, I want you three to meet me tomorrow morning at Training Ground 7 for a field exercise. Oh, and don't eat, you might puke, Kakashi said while looking at Naruto. Well, Umeshihime, I wish we had more time together, but I must leave you. But worry not, you'll be on my mind. Then he shunshined away. Naruto turned and glared at Satsuki. Would you mind telling me why I needed to be part of your little group meeting, Uchiha-hime? Naruto quietly spoke. Satsuki looked at the other two and said, we have to leave. Then Satsuki turned and started walking away. Naruto quickly followed, while Lee and Choji looked at each other. Is it just me or do those two seem a little off? Choji asked. Umeshi-sensei is wonderful, but now I have someone to test myself against. The Uchiha she is is a genius, while I'll show her the power of hard work. Towards the end, flames in his eyes and an aura of flames appeared behind him. Choji looked at him. Look, I just remembered something, munch, bye, and with that Choji turned and left. Later that evening, Uchiha clan estate. Why were we completely silent the entire way here, Uchiha-hime? Naruto inquired as they arrived at the front gate to the Uchiha clan grounds. Because we had nothing to discuss until we arrived to my training grounds, Satsuki quipped back as she pushed the gate open and walked in. Walking in silence, they crossed the main grounds and walked past the large manor, the main family house. Naruto had flashes of that day, shuddering involuntarily. Satsuki didn't notice because she was in front leading the way to her clan training grounds. Then Naruto noticed another figure on the training grounds. Wait, is that Hyuga-hime? What is she doing here? Naruto asked rather impatiently. Oh, I forgot, Hinata-chan and I have a training session scheduled for today. Satsuki replied, then continued, Hinata-chan. Naruto-san has agreed to train us in his special henge jutsu that I told you about. Hinata smiled and blushed a little and replied, Konbanwa, Satsuki-chan. Naruto-san, it is good to see you, and thank you for agreeing to teach us your jutsu. Naruto nearly stumbled. Right. Agreed, Naruto said while glaring at Satsuki. Anyways, I keep trying to tell her it's just a regular henge, like I've always done, Naruto started saying, but Satsuki interrupted. That's not true. When I saw you do the henge and make Naruto the first time, you did a slightly different set of hand seals and your henge interacts with everything as if it was real. Look, even now your hanged clothes are making marks in the dirt. Regular henges can't do that. Mine always does, and those were the hand seals taught to me, Naruto said while glancing towards the east gate. Whenever I tried your hand signs and put chakra in it, I can't change more than an arm or my face. What am I doing wrong? Satsuki practically growled at him. I don't know, I just put a little chakra in it and it works, Naruto replied. Satsuki-chan, maybe there is a difference in the amount of chakra used. He may think it's a small amount, but boys have a larger reserve than girls. And since all the jutsu tests were one-on-one, I don't know how much he has. So Naruto-san, please show us your henge, Hinata asked. Fine, Naruto released his henge, then waited for Hinata to activate her blood limit. When she nodded, he went through the hand seals and hanged back into Naruto. Hinata nearly stumbled back, and if Satsuki wasn't there she would have fell. Satsuki looked at her and asked, Hinata-chan, are you okay? What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost or something. Hinata took a moment to try and figure out what she just saw. Naruto was looking at her with a raised eyebrow. Satsuki-chan, I don't think we can preform his henge for a while, Hinata stuttered out. Why? Satsuki demanded. Because Satsuki-chan, he used about 2/3 of chakra I have, Hinata stated. Satsuki glared at Naruto. You doby, you said it only took a little bit of chakra. You were laughing at me this entire time. I'm gonna kick your ass. Satsuki was basically screaming at him by the end, and poor Naruto looked utterly confused. Satsuki-chan, wait, please stop, Hinata pleaded while grabbing Satsuki's arm. Why he was making fun of us, saying it didn't take all that much, then using half of his reserves. Satsuki was seething. What are you talking about, Uchiha-hime? I didn't use half of my reserves for that. I used as little as I could, Naruto said, while still confused. Bullshit, Choji-san has the largest reserves in the class and he only has a little more than twice as much as Hinata-chan, Satsuki said in an icy tone. Satsuki-chan, he isn't lying, Hinata interrupted with, and Satsuki looked at Hinata, then narrowed her eyes at her and frostily said, What do you mean? Hinata glanced at Naruto then back at Satsuki. He only used around 5 to 8% of his reserves. Satsuki blinked then said, that's no possible, he would have to have the same amount of chakra as a high chunin or low jonin. Satsuki stopped her rant, she just remembered the fight with Mizuki. Naruto was matching him jutsu for jutsu and still outlasted him. How? Satsuki asked. Naruto looked at her, cocked his head to the side and responded, how what? She shot back, how do you have that much chakra, what did you do to get that much? Naruto took up a thinking pose then replied, I don't know, I didn't think I did anything special to get it, who knows, maybe I got it from one of my parents. Well, now that you've figured out the problem you were having, I'll show myself out. With that he just turned and left. Both of the girls thought it was just too strange that he had such large reserves then. He made the offhand comment about getting it from one of his parents. They realized that if he did get it from one of his parents, then that mean his children would get those large reserves, and whatever clan he married into would forever benefit from it. Once they came to that conclusion, they both looked up and saw that he was gone. Hinata quickly said goodbye and made her way home. They both learned something new about the blonde, but it only raised more questions, and they decided that they would keep that little tidbit of information to themselves, and maybe do a little research into his past if they can. 12 years PKA. Hokage Office, Hokage Tower, Konoha. Well, Team 6, you did quite well in painting the Haruno's shed. It seems like your team has done nothing but missions this week. Would you like another mission? I'll see what I have. The Hokage greeted Naruto's team, and started rummaging through the mission folder for something else for them to work on. That is when Ebisu pipped up, Hokage-sama. I believe we have completed the minimum missions necessary to request a C-ranked mission. My team's teamwork is unmatched. What they need now is field experience. The Hokage looked up from what he was doing and cocked an eyebrow at Ebisu. Really, Ebisu, you think they are ready for a mission out of the village? The Hokage asked flatly. Hi, Hokage-sama, Ebisu replied quickly. Very well then, it seems I have a very basic investigation C-ranked mission, taking place near the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Grass. The little village there has had several children go missing. You are to find out who and why. If you think your team can take them out, then do it, but if there is even the slightest doubt, request backup. Do I make myself very clear, Ebisu? Towards the end, the Hokage's eyes narrowed at Ebisu. Ebisu nodded and turned to his team. Pack for several weeks and meet me at the west entrance tomorrow at daybreak. Dismissed. The three genin nodded and left. Ebisu left the Hokage's office smiling and thinking, by the end of next month my team will be hailed as heroes and there is nothing the old codger can do about it. Soon demon, soon you will be dead and gone. Later that evening, Naruto's apartment, Konoha. Naruto didn't like Ebisu at all. The man made no attempt at hiding his hatred, they had no teamwork. Whatever this mission was, Naruto assumed that Ebisu would try everything in his power, short of attacking Naruto directly, to make sure he didn't make it back to Konoha. He thought of telling Gigi, but thought the old man had enough to deal with and didn't need Naruto's paranoid rantings. Though was packing, he started a load of laundry, taking off his shirt and scarf. He was so caught up in his thoughts of betrayal and the excitement of leaving the village he almost didn't hear the knock on his door. He snapped out of it and approached the door with caution. He was about a meter away when he called out. Who is it and what do you want? His right hand on his chukoto. Think shorter ninja 2 and you're there. Then he heard a familiar demand. Let me in, Baka. Naruto relaxed a little and replied. What do you want, Uchiha-hime? He could almost hear her growl before she replied. Just let me in, Naruto now responded with slight mirth. Why? If you don't open this door I swear I'll blow it apart with a Kaden jutsu, the door yelled back. Fine, Naruto smirked. Satsuki heard the door being unlocked, and there were a lot of locks. Naruto opened the door and looked at Satsuki. What do you want and how did you know where I live? Satsuki brain kinda just stopped. Satsuki's photographic memory now had a shirtless Naruto etched in her mind. He had a nice six-pack starting. His chest had 2 scars on it near his heart and he wore a black choker with an odd swirl on the metal clasp. His face with those whiskers now in her mind, she barely registered that she thought he was ungodly cute, and slightly. Her face heated up. Then she saw he was incredibly close and she thought she heard him talking. She strained to listen. Yo, Uchiha-hime, are you alright? Satsuki suddenly snapped. What? Yes, I'm fine. Naruto looked at her for a second, then shook his head and asked, Well, why are you here, and did you run here? Her face is all flushed. Satsuki was slightly taken back by that. Of course, I mean I rushed over here so that way no one would see me come here. Satsuki barely caught the flicker of pain in his eyes. She suddenly felt bad, and to top it off she forgot why she'd tracked him down. Then an idea popped into her head. I just wanted to ask if your team is treating you well, I mean are they nice? Naruto's right eyebrow raised, then he got a wicked idea, smiled slightly and replied. Why Uchiha Haim are you worried about me? The humor in his voice was lost on Satsuki. She suddenly got incredibly flustered, and when Satsuki gets flustered she gets violent. Satsuki took a swing at Naruto, who dodged and grabbed her arm and pulled her into his apartment. She countered by throwing her left leg behind his and tried to push him off balance. Unfortunately, he still had a hold on her arm as they both fell. Satsuki didn't know when or how it happened, but she shut her eyes and braced to hit the floor. It never came. Instead, she landed on a body. Opening her eyes, she was nose to nose with Naruto. She couldn't move all. It was as if she was paralyzed. All she could do is stare at his very blue eyes. She felt her body heat up, then she flung herself off him. He looked at her, he looked a little afraid for a second, then he just looked confused. Are you done attacking me? He asked while getting up and turning away. I didn't get what I wanted, so no, Satsuki damn near shouted back. What do you want? Naruto asked as he went back to packing. Satsuki saw his pack and finally remembered why she came here in the first place. Is it true that your team is going out on a C-ranked mission already? She asked in a rather quiet tone. Yes, he replied. Why, we've only been genin for a week. Tokai-sensei thinks we're ready. That's it, he thinks you're ready and you go. What's the mission? An investigation into some kidnappings near the land of grass. Do you expect any trouble? Naruto paused and looked at her. She barely heard the response. It sounded hollow, but she heard him say no. Both of them didn't believe what he said. She left and he continued packing, wondering why she went out of her way to talk to him, and why for the love of Kami did he always piss her off. Asterisk on the road just outside of Konoha. Alright Team 6, the mission is that there are a few women and children disappearing from the village of Takamatsu. We just need to find out if they are getting lost. Bandits are kidnapping them. Or if the land of grass is conducting missions in the land of fire. Once we establish who's doing what, we will either request aid or we will take care of all of the problems while there. Ebisu glanced at Naruto when he said all, but was fairly confident that the demon Brad didn't suspect a thing. They continued down the road. It would take a week or so to get there. During that time Ebisu would send Naruto to go make camp and collect wood and hunt while he trained the other two. Naruto on the other hand never complained. In fact, he never really said anything except hi Tokai-sensei. It started to unnerve Ebisu after the third day. It was like it knew he was planning against it. One day outside Takamatsu village. Naruto, you are the bait. Henge yourself into a young girl, maybe 10 or so, but make yourself look moderately well off. Anaho, you will act as her bodyguard. Make yourself look a little older, while me and Tobio will keep watch from a distance. So you two go on ahead. We will arrive later, Ebisu stated. Naruto thought, this is a poorly thought out plan. What if the intel was wrong and there are ninja, or any number of other unforeseen circumstance? We shouldn't break apart. We've only been together for 2 weeks. Then Naruto hanged into a young version of Naruto and looked at Anaho with a blank look while still thinking this was a bad idea. Anaho did a slight double take and thought, wow, and here I thought he was gonna screw this up. The hanged herself to be a few years older. Well, she started. Naruto will be fine, or Umeshi-san, Naruto said flatly. Well Naruto, let us go. Tokai-sensei, we will see you later. With that they left. Ebisu couldn't help but think that name sounded familiar, like he heard it in a bar or something. Takamatsu village. Naruto and Anaho walked into the tiny village and saw nothing but men. In their minds they just confirmed that, at least their minds, there was some problem. They went around town going from shop to shop, picking up supplies, and shopping. Naruto actually kinda liked it. No one glared at him, he was free to enter any shop she wanted. The only downside was explaining over and over again that the guy's clothing she was buying was for her fiancé. And it's an arranged marriage to a young noble boy. These are wedding gifts. Many other the villagers believed them. After a long day of shopping they found the local inn. Renting a room for the night, they decided that it would keep their cover if Anaho stayed in the same room. They sat down across from each other, looking at one another in silence. Naruto was first to break the silence. So did you notice that most of the men here look scared and desperate? Hi, though if the only thing that's being kidnapped is a few women and children, why is the whole place spooked? Anaho replied. I don't know, but something isn't right. Even if this is the work of bandits, it just seems off for some reason. Naruto slowly stated. Well, we'll worry about it later. I'll get dinner. No, I'll get dinner. You're a young noble, you don't go and get dinner, Anaho stated coldly because he almost went and blew their cover, as she got up. Remember, lock this door, we might be under observation, she stated. Hi, get me whatever, he responded, and with that she left. After 20 or so minutes there was a knock at the door. Who is it? Naruto asked. It is me, Naruko-hime. I bring dinner. After Naruto unlocked the door, Anaho carried in the food. Setting down the tray, they ate in relative silence. After several of bites, Naruto looked up at Anaho. Stop eating, it's poiso. As he said this, Anaho slumped forward unconscious. Ned. Damn, I need to. The door suddenly burst inward. 6 guys were standing there, each holding a weapon. One spoke up. Well, she's a little young even for my tastes, but we'll take them both. How are you still awake? Oh well, take that one and give her to the guys. This one goes directly to the boss. If you touch her like that, I'll bite my tongue, Naruto snapped at him. The little girlie has a spine. Fine, we'll take them both to the boss and her can decide what to do with them. They roughly grabbed them and made their way off to their base of operations. 2 sets of eyes watched them go, and followed as best they could. The older of the 2 thinking that he might need to get 2 new genin for his team. I mean, it's just her bad luck that she was on the demons team. Maybe there was a way to convince people that it was the demons' fault, not his, that he came back 2 members short. The younger was so fixated on Naruto's pending rape and demise that he didn't even think of what might happen to his friend Anaho. In the forest 3 kilometers outside of Takamatsu. The group could see the bandit camp when Anaho started waking up. She immediately flung herself off the mont's shoulder that was carrying her and engaged 2 bandits in taijutsu. Naruto couldn't help because the leader had her tied up and gauged. Naruto thought to herself, we're close enough, we found their base camp, Sensei should help us. He was looking for something to help her out of this, when Anaho tossed a knife at Naruto's feet. The leader had tossed Naruto aside in favor of belittling his men, saying things like, oh come on, you can't take on one simple little girly guard. He didn't notice that Naruto escaped. Everybody was focused on Anaho. She was handling herself pretty well, and most likely would have won. If not for the arrow that pierced through her chest. She just stopped. Naruto stopped and ran over to her. To me-san, hang on, I'll help you. I just need to find something to stop the bleeding. He heard laughing. She just looked at him and stared. Her eyes started glazing over. Damn it. Where the hell is Tokai-sensei? He glanced up and saw a tall man wearing loose-fitting armor and a large bow, most likely the who shot Anaho. Shut up, he yelled. The men around became dead silent. What the hell are you fools doing? Why wasn't she tied up, and how did the little one get out? What, no answer? Fine, no more girls this week for any of you. There were groans from each of the men there. You girl, come here or you'll end up like your friend, he said while pointing at Naruto still holding Anaho's body. Naruto glared at the man. He may not have liked Anaho, but she didn't deserve to die out here in the middle of nowhere. He laid her down gently and stood up, looked at the man and said calmly, you will die, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. The man laughed and told the others to grab her and bring her to the boss. Not more than 20 meters away, Tobio suddenly felt ill. Was Anaho really dead? No, she's fine, she's just pretending, right? He turned to face his sensei. Sensei, we have to go and help her. Ebisu didn't even look at him and replied, no, she's dead. Naruto didn't think of a way to save her. It's his fault. If he tried to calm her down when she woke up, she would still be alive. But we have to leave them both here. We have to send word there is a Chunin level missing nin. That man with the bow, his name is Sukuma Naramochi. He's a missing nin from grass. He supposedly died 2 years ago, but apparently not. It will be at least a week before backup arrives, so he'll sit tight and monitor them. Ebisu was hoping that the bandit would discover that Naruto was a male, then kill him, but if not, he'll play the noble sensei and before help arrives rush in to save him, hoping that will get him killed, and if both of those don't work, he'll just kill the little demon himself. It will be easy to convince the little genin to report exactly what he tells him to. The kid looks about ready to rush in there and kill the demon himself. Konoha, 3 days later. The Hokage's office, Hokage Tower. The third just got the most disturbing report from Ebisu's team, one genin dead, through the fault of another, and that one was captured. There is at least one missing nin, Chunin level. And all of his more advanced teams are all out, he only had the rookie teams. Damn it, he angrily thought, Ebisu, you foolish man, your pride killed your squad, who am I gonna send? Then there was a knock on the door. Come in, the third said. Entering his office was Team 7, it's a sign from Kami, good you're here. I take it you performed well on your latest mission, the third asked. Kakashi looked up from his little orange book with an eyebrow raised, hi, Hokage-sama. Good, because I have need of a heavy combat team, the Hokage said as he started rifling through his files. Kakashi didn't like where this was going, and looking at his students who were practically glowing with excitement, he wasn't going to have an easy time trying to get out of this. What do you need my team for, Hokage-sama? He asked, then the Hokage handed him 2 files. Kakashi's team watched as their sensei read through the file blankly. He looked up and, I take it this needs to be handled no matter what, the third nodded. Kakashi continued. Do we know which one? The third shook his head no. Kakashi sighed. Alright Team 7. Pack your gear pack for at least 3 weeks, we have to save some of your classmates. Satsuki suddenly felt ill and before she could stop herself, Naruto-kun. Is he alright? Everyone stopped and stared at her. She said this just as Team 8 came in the room. She suddenly realized why everyone was staring at her, Naruto-kun. It just slipped out. Why was she worried about the baka? Nothing, never mind. She turned and ran out heading home to pack. Choji and Lee were stupefied. The only person in all of Konoha that was more of an ice queen the Satsuki Uchiha was Team 8's sensei, Kurenai Yuhi. And she just called the orphan Kun. What the hell is happening around here? Kiba on the other hand nearly was seething. Not only did being on a team full of girls suck, because none of them would let him near them, but the hottest girl of their year apparently liked that clan-less loser. Both Tenten and Hinata were worried about their fellow classmates, and a little more worried about the blonde enigma known as Naruto. Kurenai suddenly asked, what happened to the Gaki's team? Nothing, don't worry about it Kurenai-chan, they just need a little backup, the third replied, then continued, well Team 8, there is this cat who needs to be tracked down and captured. The road to Takamatsu village, 2 days out. It's been 5 days since we got that letter and Kakashi still won't tell us whether or not Naruto-kun. If Naruto-san is alright, Satsuki thought. It takes 3 days for a letter to get to Konoha from here. That means I've been worrying about that baka for 8 days. I'm gonna kick his ass for making me worry. Kakashi was quite amused by the last Uchiha. She was like a worried wife. Not that he'd say that she would most likely kill him in his sleep, but it was still kinda cute the way she got all fired up about Naruto. Lee and Choji were smarter than they first appeared because they have yet to broach the subject of why Satsuki was setting such a pace. Kakashi was slightly disappointed only because it would have been funny for the situation, but he was glad they were taking orders from her, and was glad she was giving good orders. He didn't need to tell them that they needed rest or anything, she would just glance back and decide a rest was in order. Satsuki had just decided to get up from their 1-hour break, when she looked up at the night sky. I wonder if Naruto-kun is alright. She shook her head, why'd I keep calling him Naruto-kun? She glanced down the road and saw 2 figures. Signaling to Kakashi, he quickly gave orders to go to the trees and hide. After a few minutes the pair was close enough for Kakashi to see that it was Ebisu and one of his students. Hopping down he waved to Ebisu. Ebisu almost had a heart attack. He didn't think the great Kopi nin Kakashi. Damn, Ebisu thought and started sweating. How am I going to spin this, to get them to leave with us and not bother with the demon? I don't know if the demon has his claws in him. Ah, hello Kakashi-san. We are in need of help to get back to Konoha. The bandits seemed to have ninja help and he killed 2 of my students, Tomi-san and Naruto, Ebisu quickly said. Kakashi eyed him. Naruto is dead? Team 7 had several reactions to this. Lee thought it was a sad day to lose 2 of his former classmates. Choji thought that this shouldn't have happened. They only recently graduated, they should have waited at least a month or 2 before going on this type of mission. Satsuki felt something hurt, like the day she lost her family. She suddenly turned and bolted. Choji and Lee started turning to go after her when Kakashi held up his hand. Let her be, I can sense where she is. She has to deal with it herself. Now are you sure both Tami-san and Naruto are dead? Ebisu nodded. Where are their bodies? Kakashi continued. Destroyed by a fire jutsu. Ebisu lied. Kakashi eyed him again. Ebisu did his best not to give anything away. Satsuki ran until she couldn't hear them anymore. She dropped to her knees and punched the ground. Why? She growled through her tears. Why did you have to make me like you? She hit the ground again. Why did you leave me like the rest of them? Tears pouring down her cheeks, as she hits the ground again. Satsuki was too busy hating Naruto for leaving her alone again. She didn't notice she wasn't alone. Damn you Naruto. The kunoichi watching Satsuki, eyes widened and spoke, Naruto? Satsuki immediately jumped to her with a kunai in hand. I apologize Leaf Nin. I didn't mean to scare you. The Rain kunoichi stepped out of her hiding spot. You didn't scare me. I'm Uchiha. Satsuki spat then continued. Why are you here Rain Nin? Are you here to help Naruto? Satsuki glared at her. Don't you dare say that name to me. Satsuki screamed and charged her and continued to yell as she swung. He's dead, don't try to deceive me. Dodging the Rain kunoichi replied. What do you mean he's dead? I saw him yesterday. He was being tortured by those bandits. I followed his team, I thought they were meeting you to help him. Satsuki stopped attacking and stuttered out. What did you just say? Asterisk 9 days earlier. Day 1 of captivity. The man who killed Anaho, led Naruto to the infamous boss. He was an older man, that wore an expensive suit. He looked at Naruto with hungry eyes, as they stepped into his tent. Naruto sneered at him. The older man laughed. We'll see how haughty you are after a few days without food. Kurukichi-san, why aren't you worried about the possibility of Leaf Ninja? The man with the bow asked. Because we're on the border between fire and grass, they won't risk sending anyone here, and besides there is only a few more days until we leave, the boss said back, then looked at Naruto and continued. Anyways, what's a bunch of ninja going to do? We've already captured one grass ninja, and you killed the other two. They still haven't sent anyone to come and get her. I don't think they care, and she has been gauged so she can't kill herself. The man with the bow responded with a grin. You know, it's too bad that he wants all these women untouched. Because I would love to be the one to break that little genin bitch in. The look of fear whenever I go anywhere near her just makes it that much harder not to relieve my stress with her. Then he looked at Naruto and continued. You know, this one is quite feisty. She threatened to kill me. When I killed her bodyguard, she apparently knows no fear, the prissy little pampered bitch. Look at her, she just is glaring at me. Leave her be and take her to the high-end cages where the other high-class bitches are, the boss interrupted. Hi, you heard the man, little girl, get moving or I'll just say you were already broken in when I found you. Naruto was shoved along until they got to a series of cages and she was put into the second to last cage, where 3 other girls were. 2 looked frightened and didn't even move when the man with the bow shoved Naruto in. They looked to be maybe 15 and probably never worked a day in their lives. The 3rd girl in this cage was bound up and gauged. She was barely conscious, but you could catch the flicker of fear when she saw the man. She looked maybe 13, she had long brown hair and brown eyes and slightly beat up. Naruto picked up the bucket of water and walked over towards her and was just about to help her out of her bindings when one of the other girls tackled her. She whispered in a slightly whiny voice. No, you can't do that. If you help her in any way they'll beat you and tie you up like they did her. Naruto shoved the proper girl off her and continued with what she was doing while saying, then let them. The tied-up girl eyed her carefully as Naruto got closer. Naruto knelt down and whispered in her ear, Kunoichi-san, I want you to promise not to bite your tongue if I ungag you. I'll need your help to get us out of here. She eyed the little girl very carefully, then nodded slowly. She ungauged the grass nin, and brought the water to her lips. The grass nin drank it down quickly. Naruto then spoke quietly, hold on, slow down a little, you'll hurt yourself if you're not careful. Why are you helping me? I'm in no condition to fight, and you heard what they said. You'll probably end you getting hurt and tied up like me, so why? Because Kunoichi-san. Naruto started but was cut off. I have a name, it's Kin, the grass nin interrupted. Well, Kin-san, I need information, so I can best utilize everyone and thing around here to help us escape, and since you're a ninja you'll be one of the largest assets. Kin eyed her with an uncompromising stare. You are not a normal 10-year-old girl, are you? Naruto snorted out a small laugh. Nothing about me is normal. She paused, then started putting the gag back on. Sorry, someone is coming. You should understand the power of deception, Naruto winked. The other girls nearly peed themselves when a man walked up, big, fat and ugly with no fashion sense, and eyed them while licking his lips. He loved the look of fright on their faces. It was almost better than any aphrodisiac he's ever had. He was trying to figure out if there was any way for him to be able to have one of these succulent morsels when a shoe came flying out of the cage and nailed him in his left eye. Screaming, he grabbed the side of his face, and he felt another shoe hit him in the groin, dropping to the ground in pain. He slowly got back to his knees and looked at the cage with his on good eye, to see a 10-year-old scrape of a girl smirking at him. Enraged, he started fiddling with the keys on his belt and shouted, "Screw the consequences. After I'm done using your body, little girl, I'm gonna kill you." "No you're not," came a voice from behind him. It was the man with the bow. "That little bitch just tried to blind me. I demand compensation." The man with the owl seemed to smirk, the replied. "I don't care, that's what you get for stopping and staring at the cargo instead of patrolling," the man with the bow calmly stated. "No," the man screamed back, then turned back to the cell and seethed out. "That isn't fair, Sukima, that bitch has gotta pay. Just let me use her, then we can call it even." The newly named man with the bow, Sukima, pulled out a kunai and threw it right into the back of the half-blinded Mont's head. The Mont's good eye rolled into the back of his head and he fell to the ground. Sukima walked over to retrieve his kunai and said, "Little girl, if you keep this up, the next one I'll let have their way with you, because at that point, you'll be more trouble than you're worth." Sukima looked up only to see the cold stare of the child blink, then turning her back to him, she walked to the back of the cage and sat down. Sukima felt there was something wrong with that little girl but couldn't quite put his finger on it. Kin, on the other hand, was quite pleased with this noble little girl. She certainly knew how to make an impression. Day 5 of captivity. 5 days of planning and waiting for the right time. Naruto had figured out quite a bit and was ready after day 3, but the only problem was if Sukima was there he couldn't execute his plans. Today was different. Today was the day that Sukima went to arrange for the buyer to meet them here, and should be gone a couple of days. Naruto was still Naruto, but it was becoming harder to hold his henge. He was giving half his food to Kin when no one was looking. The other two girls were at first very wary of the 10-year-old who picked fights with the guards. Now they seemed to be trying to figure out why this little girl was very unladylike. She turned away when all the girls were forced to bathe together. She didn't want help, nor did she help anyone. It was very odd for a high-class little girl. Naruto, on the other hand, nearly had a heart attack the first time they made them all wash together. But with a few quick glances here and there he was finally able to prefect his henge. He made a note to apologies to all the girls later. He wasn't a pervert, but the girls helped with his henge quite a bit. He was down to maybe a quarter of his reserves, which for a normal person was about a mid to high genin worth, but hey, he normally had chakra to spare. His stupid henge and the low amount of food was messing with him. If only he didn't need to keep it up, then he'd finally get some of his reserves to replenish. But tonight right around 3 am is when he'll start everything. He just needed one poor sap that had keys to walk by, then off we go. He knew they just needed a head start, and with the majority of the threat gone for a few days, he was fairly certain that he could execute his plans without a problem. Kin knew that for the first part of the plan, she was exposed and need to rely on Naruto to save to unbind her, the chakra cuffs. Once they were off, she was back in business. The only thing she was unclear on was how was Naruto going to get out of the cage to begin with. She kept saying that it wouldn't be a problem, but Kin suspected that maybe, just maybe, Naruto has had some ninja training. Naruto had very few people in his plan. In fact, only Kin knew a part of the plan. Everyone else didn't have a clue, which he knew was a bad idea. But the fewer people that knew, the better the element of surprise. During the middle of the night around 3 am, Naruto was leaning against the cage, waiting for the guard to come around. He was glad that they left a shovel not too terribly far away. She woke Kin, then apologized. Cocking an eyebrow, she saw Naruto walk over and release a henge. Naruto disappeared, and standing there was a short blonde-haired boy. She suddenly understood why he apologized and was truly impressed by how long he was able to hold that henge, and that the henge was real. Maybe it was some kind of blood limit, but enough of that. She watched as he shunshined outside the cage in the shadows of it. The guard came by and was down before anyone knew what happened. He walked up and unlocked the cage, and untied Kin, who quietly spoke, "You mister have a lot to explain." Later, he said his voice was silky when he spoke low. It sent shivers down her spine. Her continued, "Now I need you to help get the girls as far away as you can. I'm gonna deal as much damage and be a big distraction for as long as I can. It won't hold their attention forever, so you have to hurry." Kin realized he didn't plan on leaving with them. "What about you?" Naruto blinked, then replied, "What about me?" She replied with urgency, "How are you gonna get away?" "I'm not. I gotta buy you as much time as I can," he said. Then he smiled. Then continued, "Don't worry, I got a team somewhere. They'll help if they can." "You're gonna die, why don't make a run for it like the rest of us?" She glared at him. He casually replied, "Because my way you'll get away and there'll be a celebration." She shot back, "For what, your death?" She got no response as he looked away from her. "Go, it's time, goodbye Kin-san. It was nice to have meet you." He handed her the keys to the cages as there was suddenly an explosion on the other side of the camp. The boy in front of her popped and disappeared. Cage Bushin. Then Kin stopped thinking about the boy that left her to escape while he went to go and die. She had a mission to go and do. She executed it quite well. The cages were empty not 2 minutes later. She had escaped, along with 16 other women and children. Kin knew it deep down that Naruto did not share in the girl's fate. She just wondered why the Konoha genin would provide such a distraction that would most likely get him killed to help her, a non-allied nin and some civilians. Did he do it out of some misguided sense of chivalry? If he survived, and if they ever met again, she'd definitely have a few questions for the blonde ninja. Day 9 of captivity. Naruto hung strapped naked between 2 posts in the command tent of the bandit camp. For the last 3 days the new second-in-command took great joy in her job to torture him for information. The old second-in-command met an unfortunate end when Sukuma returned to find the girls he promised to the buyer gone. In the last 3 days the new second hadn't really got any good information out of the boy. She was starting to get angry at him from the lack of his response. She stood in front of him glaring for the umpteenth time in the last 60 hours. She still couldn't believe the amount of blood that she had spilled, and he never once cried out. He just looked at her, almost as if he was expecting far worse than the cuts in his abdomen that she inflicted. She had just finished another round of questioning. Her shirt was ruined by his blood. "You know," she said in a frosty voice, "if you just tell me how you found us and where the rest of your team took the girls, I'll personal vouch for you, and you could help us. Your team obviously abandoned you. So why are you being so damn stubborn? And just tell me." She finally started yelling at the end as she drove the kunai in her hand into his left bicep. Wincing in pain, he just looked at the floor. Part of him hoped that someone was going to rescue him, but another part was pretty sure that wasn't going to happen. He needed to think about this. They were certain that he wasn't alone. They still didn't recover the girls, and they still didn't encounter the rest of his team. "Kika, that's enough," Sukuma clipped as he entered the tent. "Bleeding him dry will not tell you what he knows, but after a few more days of no food, water, or really much sleep he'll give in. We can always use him as a hostage if his friends come to kill us." "Honestly, I'm surprised. I didn't think the soft leaf had it in them to train genin to resist torture. But then you are kinda unique, aren't you? You've lost enough blood to kill a full-grown man, but by the next morning you seem to have your color back and all the minor wounds from the day before are gone. Tell me, Konoha nen, is this a blood limit? Orochimaru would probably pay money for you." By now Sukuma was standing in front of the naked and bloody Naruto. Naruto just stared at the floor. It was bad, but they were far from the tortures inflicted by that rude Uchiha all those years ago. Sukuma started getting angry at Naruto for not answering him. He grabbed Naruto's chin and forced Naruto to look at him. "Answer me, or I'll kill you and the remaining children. That is after I let my men have some fun," Sukuma said. "No," Naruto replied in an almost monotone voice. "What was that?" Sukuma seethed. "He dares tell me no, I'll kill him." "I said no, it isn't a blood limit," Naruto said while staring straight ahead. Sukuma just stood there and blinked a few times, then started laughing. "Sir?" Kika started, but was quickly silenced by a vicious backhand from Sukuma. "You are interesting, young Konoha nen. Tell me, why did you answer my question today? You've been threatened before with the same thing and remained quiet, so why today?" Sukuma asked with unrestrained curiosity. Naruto thought about the question for a moment, then decided to answer. He knew his answer would hurt him, but it was too good to pass up. His damn prankster side always getting him into trouble like before. Your voice is more annoying than hers. I didn't want to hear it anymore. Sukima went into a rage and started beating the captive boy until Kika and 2 other guards pulled him off. After the first few seconds of the beating, Naruto slipped into unconsciousness. Day 10 of captivity. Wake up Konoha Nin, your day, today, is going to be quite exciting, you get to possible escape. Kika smiled as she woke the blonde ninja. Then she continued, it's easy. All you have to do is fight a few people. Unfortunately for you, they are some of the guards you wounded or friends of them. They want a little payback, she ended with a sadistic grin. Naruto looked up at her then politely asked, I take it I get to use jutsus and such, or is this gonna be another one of your tickle sessions? He grinned back. Kika slapped him hard, then spoke, you know you could have saved yourself a lot of pain if you would have just given up your team, but by the end of the day you're gonna be dead. She paused, she looked him over and started untying him. Kika continued, why is it that you only have 3 scars on your body but none of what I did even left a mark? Naruto nearly collapsed when his bindings were cut, he struggled to stand upright. Then he looked up into Kika's eyes, she stood about 15 to 20 centimeters taller than him, and said, you don't know how to hurt, and shakily walked past her to exit the tent. Naruto was stopped and told to put some pants on, and he was given 1 kunai. This is all you get, Kika said, and if you defeat the 3 guys that want to kill you, we'll think about letting you go. Naruto didn't even look at her, by the end of the day I'll most likely be dead, but so will you and that arrogant Teme Sukima. Kika backed out a laugh, then narrowed her eyes at Naruto. You can barely stand, and you have the gall to threaten not only me but a Chunin missing nin. You have guts, boy. I look forward to seeing what color it is. He walked out into a little clearing with the bandits all surrounding him. Sukima was there with his bow, and standing next to him was Kika glaring at Naruto. Naruto briefly contemplated making a mad dash for the woods, but with that bow it wasn't really an option. Looking back at what he surmised as his 3 opponents. A very large man with raggedy clothes and a scar on his chin. Next to him is a tall, thin man with some combat gear and a broken katana. And the final man, who was glaring hard at Naruto as if he was trying to will Naruto to die on the spot, had all of the rest of Naruto's gear including his chukoto. Naruto looked the 3 of them over and then looked back over his shoulder to Sukima and said, really, this is it, is there any rules I should know? Sukima glared at the boy then replied, you know, for someone who hasn't eaten in a few days you're very confident that you're going to win. Naruto shrugged. Sukima nodded. The 3 goons charged. Naruto quickly threw his only kunai and the man with his gear. The poor guy never had a chance. He started drawing his weapon when the kunai hit him in the chest, dropping him like a sack of potatoes. Everyone had just started cheering when they all watched as, in less than 5 seconds, he disabled or killed 1 opponent right off the bat. The other 2 stumbled a little then continued towards Naruto. Naruto took advantage of their hesitation and bolted right between the 2 to get to his gear. The tall man with the sword swung wildly at Naruto. Unfortunately, Naruto dove under the swing and the big man wasn't quick enough. Blood flew into the air as the tall man basically gutted the big man. Enraged at the fact he killed one of his own, the tall man ran headlong at Naruto, who recovered his chukoto, kunai and shuriken. Looking up at the tall man bearing down on him, he saw past him. Sukima was notching an arrow. Yep, Naruto thought. Looks like I was right. The tall man got closer, bloodlust in his eyes. Naruto started pulling his sword when a kunai impaled the tall man's neck. Naruto blinked a few times to make sure he wasn't hallucinating. The tall man stumbled again as he dropped his sword and clawed at the kunai in his neck. The crowd started shouting and drawing their weapons. 2 fire jutsus hit the crowd and they scattered. Sukima started frantically looking around. He started drawing his bow back when a kunai lodged itself in his right shoulder. Sukima screamed and looked at where it came from. Naruto stood there grinning. Sukima made a vow to the heavens right there. He would kill that boy. Kika, go take the slaves we've gathered and get out of here. I'll meet you in a few days. You know where? I have to go kill that Gaki. Kika nodded then sprinted away. The other bandits were engaging the new enemy. Sukima walked over and picked up a katana of the ground. You know, child, you will die today, Sukima stated almost if it was a commonly known fact. Naruto looked at him. Nah, I have some better things to do today than die. besides we're even now. I don't really have any energy and you can barely lift your right arm, so jutsus from you are gonna be few and far between. Sukima glared at him again, then charged. Satsuki couldn't believe it, Naruto was still alive. He looked pretty messed up, dyed blood all over the place, and she could see those scars again, but this time she saw he didn't have the choker. She could see another scar across his neck. Like someone cut his throat. She fired off another katanjutsu, and watched as the bandits tried their damnedest to put themselves out. She threw a few more kunai and shuriken. Choji couldn't believe that Satsuki's friend was right. Naruto was still alive and fighting quite a few people. Using his family jutsu's head was making a large dent in the bandit forces, knocking them away like flies. Lee was beating the ever-loving crap out of one bandit. The poor guy never stood a chance. Kakashi and Tobio took off after Kika and engaged her. Ebisu stood watching the duel between Sukima and Naruto. He waited and watched for his opening to kill both. He reached down and picked up a broken katana that he found lying next to the fist guy Kakashi killed. He slowly made his way over to the duelists. Naruto just blocked an overhead swing by Sukima. Glaring at Naruto, Sukima spoke, "It doesn't matter what happens today as long as you die." Naruto struggled against the man. Several days of not eating and the fact the man was full grown and stronger didn't help. He had to think of something. He was losing. In a few more seconds Sukuma's blade was going to cut Naruto's head in two. Naruto was frantically trying to think of a way out of this when he felt a sharp burning pain in his chest. Sukima seemed to stop pushing as much, looking down at the source of the pain. Naruto saw a blade protruding from the right side of his chest. Following it he saw it went into Sukuma's chest, and judging by his sudden slack it went through Sukuma's heart. Ebisu pulled the blade from Sukuma's chest and cursed for missing Naruto's heart. He was about to remedy this, when Naruto heard a girl scream before blacking out. Satsuki watched in horror as Naruto's sensei impaled both the missing nin and Naruto. Then Ebisu, removing the blade from the body, cursed when he saw Naruto's heart was just fine. Ebisu brought the sword he picked up above his head for a killing blow. Die demon spawn. Ebisu roared as he started bringing the blade down, but was interrupted by Kakashi tackling him. "What's wrong with you, Ebisu? This isn't you." Kakashi yelled as he slapped a piece of paper to Ebisu's forehead. Ebisu cried out as he found himself immobilized. "I deal with you later." Kakashi spat as he got up and rejoined the fray. As Kakashi started fighting again, Satsuki rushed over at a bandit, firing off her fire jutsus left and right. Doing her best to incapacitate as many as she could. She was trying to get to where Naruto laid, but the bandits were doing quite well at keeping her away. Kakashi was encountering a similar problem. He couldn't use any high-level jutsus to get to the boy, not without risking his life. He settled on getting the bandits to follow him away from the boy so his team could form a protected area around him. Choji slammed a bandit into a tree via his family's jutsu, as he started backing Satsuki's play. Trying as hard as he could to help the last Uchiha make it to their fallen comrade. Reaching past her, his hand snatching a bandit before the man could complete his charge at the Uchiha. Looking over at Lee engaging two bandits at a time, Choji couldn't believe how many of these bandits there were. Naruto's teammate Tobio was holding his own against one bandit, but he looked more like he was just sparing with him. Choji still couldn't believe that Satsuki was fighting four at once and barely winning, but winning nonetheless. After the few minutes of fighting, the bandits were down groaning. Satsuki was at Naruto's side the instant she finished fighting the bandits. Choji and Lee were guarding the pair as Kakashi walked up. Tobio ran at them and started shouting, "Let me kill the bastard, it's his fault she died. If he did something she'd be alive." Kakashi disappeared and reappeared behind him and with a chop to the neck knocked Tobio out. "Kakashi, I need help, I can't stop the bleeding," Satsuki pleaded while desperately trying to apply pressure to the wound. Kakashi walked over and knelt down next to Satsuki, and started applying some medical techniques, both chakra-based and using the medical kit he had with him. Choji looked over his shoulder at his sensei and asked, "Is it true? Did Naruto cause Anaho's death?" "No, there was no way he could have done anything to save her," a voice called out from the woods. Lee and Choji both readied themselves for a fight. When the voice called out again, "Tell him that Kin still owes him, see you later Konoha nen." Choji looked at Lee as Lee looked at Choji, they both shrugged. Kakashi stood up and started telling them what needs to be done. Alright, after that's done, let's get back to Konoha. Kakashi still couldn't believe Ebisu. That man has lost his mind, abandoning his students but also trying to kill the container. Who knows what would have happened if that dumb ass succeeded, Kakashi thought to himself as he watched over the young boy. He wasn't doing all that bad considering everything that has happened to him over the last 2 weeks. Naruto, I wonder what you would have been like if the Kyuubi never attacked. You might not have even been a ninja. I almost wish that we were certain as to whether or not killing you would release the Kyuubi, and as horrible as it is, I hope that if we'd have known we would have killed you early on to spare you this life that you lead. Kakashi shook off those dark thoughts. He glanced down at the lone tent below. He felt a little bad about separating Naruto from the others, but he was wounded pretty badly. So it was a little precaution. Kakashi still didn't fully understand the seal. To top it off, no one knew if Naruto knew of his burden. He seemed like he didn't at times, but other times Kakashi just didn't know. Kakashi looked up from his book and noticed his cute little genins slowly making their way over to the young container's tent. Also, the young councilman's grandson, Tobio, was also making his way over. He was leaking ki, killing intent. Kakashi decided instead of dropping out of his hiding spot and asking what they were doing, he'd just watch and step in if absolutely necessary. Oh my cute little genin, what are you going to do now that you're faced with one of your own hurting in his heart and one barely hanging on to his life? Will you defend your fallen comrade whom you don't know all that well, even though you're tired and worn out, or will you step aside and let ignorance prevail? Did you three take my lesson to heart, or are you going to spit in my face? Kakashi thought as he looked on with a bit of curiosity. Satsuki-chan, what are we doing? Kakashi-sensei told us to rest, Rock whispered. I can't just leave him laying out here. I can't sense sensei anywhere, and who knows, there may be more of those bandits around, so until we're back in Konoha I won't leave anyone unguarded. Satsuki whispered back. Kakashi smiled. So you're just going to check on the Naruto kid? Choji softly asked. Yay, what of it? Satsuki harshly whispered back. You seem pretty interested in Naruto, Satsuki-chan. Rock spoke again. HN, was all the response back the boys received. Kakashi almost laughed. Are you still upset about what the grass nin said? Choji asked. No, Satsuki quietly said back, as they arrived at the tent Naruto was resting in. Really, Satsuki-chan? Because you did seem pretty upset at the time? Rock asked in disbelief. HN. The group of genin opened Naruto's tent and Satsuki made her way in. She stuck her head back out and whispered. You two watch for anything. I'm going to redress his wounds like they should have been 3 hours ago. Choji and Rock nodded. Satsuki turned around and made her way over to Naruto's prone form. She saw his chest rise and fall, with short breaths. He was also in a cold sweat. It looked like he was having a nightmare, but he could also have an infection. She was going to kill that lazy teacher for not changing his bandages earlier. Taking a cloth, she started wiping the sweat off his forehead. Outside was about to be very interesting. Choji and Rock were whispering quietly to one another trying to pass the time, when they noticed Tobio making his way towards them at a good clip. When Tobio got close enough to speak quietly to them, he opened his mouth. Why are you two guarding that thing? Choji glanced behind him and Rock, then turned back and asked, the tent? Because Satsuki-chan asked us to. What is she doing in there? Tobio almost demanded. Helping a comrade, why? Rock asked. Tobio almost looked like he was going to explode, when suddenly he stopped and asked, does she have any medical knowledge? My grandmother taught me a few things, I may be able to help. Rock turned and looked at Choji. Choji turned and looked at Rock. They both had a bad feeling about Tobio but figured if he tried anything with Satsuki, she'd kick his ass. He was kind of a fanboy a couple weeks ago. They doubted that he'd be able to hold his own. But still, being jealous of an unconscious guy, that was something new. Choji started to move out of the way when he heard a gasp come from inside the tent. All three boys rushed the tent and tried to open it. Kakashi rolled his eye. He could guess what caused the last Uchiha to gasp. Choji gave up on the zipper to the tent, and decided to rip the tent flap open. While he was doing that, Rock called out to Satsuki. Are you alright, Satsuki-chan? What's wrong? Tobio sneered and yelled out. Shut up, you baka. The bastard is doing something to her. Once we save her we have to kill it, and she will fall for me for saving her, securing me both a hot woman and power. Kakashi idly wondered if he should intervene, but decided against it. They'll work it out. What the three boys saw was not what they were expecting. Naruto was laying there, bloody bandages removed, and not a single trace of injury remained but a very small scar to the right of his heart. Satsuki was leaning over him just staring. It was kinda awkward. Choji was the first to break the silence with, "Satsuki-san, are you alright?" "Of course she isn't, that orphaned bastard did something to her." Tobio shouted and lunged at the two preteens. Rock quickly grabbed Tobio by his foot, halting his forward momentum, causing the raging boy to fall flat on his face. Tobio glared and quickly kicked Rock's hand away as he twisted around. Drawing his kunai, he aimed to stab the downed container. He was stopped as Tobio lunged. Satsuki spun around with a kunai in hand, blocked his attack, and gave him a look that could almost stop a grown man cold. "What are you doing? Get out of the way, that thing killed our team. He killed Anaho. He didn't stop her, he just let her die. Ebisu-sensei told me I had to avenge her." Tobio screamed out. Both Choji and Rock looked shocked at his statement. Choji and Rock were trying to figure out why and how Naruto let Anaho die. Just then Kakashi appeared behind Tobio and knocked him out with a strike to the back of the neck. He seems to have had a hard time adjusting. "I think he just needs to sleep it off. Do you three have this place secure for the next 15 minutes or so?" The three nodded, then Kakashi's eyes smiled and continued, "Uchiha Hime, I think it's just great that you care so much for your classmate and fellow Leaf Nin." Satsuki threw the kunai at Kakashi just as he vanished with Tobio. Satsuki huffed. She couldn't believe her sensei, that man was just an excuse of a man. She angrily thought. Choji finally broke the silence that, "All right Satsuki, what was the scream about?" She looked at him like he was crazy. The drop to a neutral face. "I did not scream, I was just caught off guard by the fact Naruto's wounds are healed." Her teammates shared a look of confusion, when Rock finally asked, "How?" "I don't know," Satsuki replied, while staring at the unconscious blonde. Everything the boy did confused her and pissed her off to no end. He must be doing it on purpose, she angrily thought. When he wakes up I am gonna get my answers from him one way or another.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.